Felt that one in the sphincter.
I had my headphones off so I didn't have to hear your comments. Hello again, friends. And I know there were comments, and I know you're our friends. And welcome back to another edition. I'm yelling. Well, welcome back to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru.
You're so excited.
We're off to a great start, an exciting start. I'm your host, the great Brian Last. But here's the man who will be carrying the show, the leader of the cult of Cornette, Mr. Jim Cornette.
How far do I have to carry it? I'm not sure I can make it that far. I'm sore. I've been working in the garage, Brian. So I'm not sure if I can carry that. But boy, when you were doing that, you made it. I was taking the ride with you there, and you made it farther in, deeper, as they say, than normal. And then and then all the cats had nervous breakdowns. But welcome to your show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. So what do you have in store for us today?
Well, no, this is Jim Cornette's Drive Thru, where I'm the one driving through and you're the one stuck in the window. See,
I see.
You're kind of orchestrating this thing. Would you like to come down to help me paint my garage?
No.
I guess that's a no.
I thought it was an implied no, but I'll say
no, you need to come right out with it. Just bring it right out there. Make a full-throated denial. Brian, I've reached this point in my life where I'm happiest about a new paint job in the garage. I got the new garage doors. The other ones, I think I mentioned to you at one point, 20 years old. The openers were so loud, they were malfunctioning. I got my brand new slicker than come on a gold tooth garage doors and openers that are just whisper quiet. And now I've had the Head Monroe brother out there for the last, I don't know how long. We've organized the garage, given it a complete cleaning. Unfortunately, had to move a couple of birds' nests out, but they've relocated to the backyard. The weather's fine and we got feeders, so I'm not worried about them. And we've given it a paint job, and I'm a successful elderly man, and I get great comfort now from accomplishing things like having a nice, clean, fresh painted garage. See, other of my contemporaries, they're still trying to relive past glories, but I'm just living in my garage. Are you there?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have much of a comeback to your garage.
Well, what is the state of your garage right now? Do you have dog shit out there everywhere, or are you taking care of your garage?
There's no shit.
If you don't take care of your garage won't take care of you.
I don't know why you think I would have dog shit out there, but no, there's no dog shit. It's a very nice, well-kept garage, and it's nice. I don't know what you want me to tell you about my garage. The doors work. They open and they close.
I did 2 or 3 minutes on my garage, and you've got nothing to say about yours. That means that yours cannot compare to mine.
Well, I guess not.
All right. This is, again, your program, and I do a lot of the talking on it, but I wanted to, before we go into the backlash from Backlash, the WWE, I can't say pay-per-view now, premium live event. It was a live event. We're going to debate the premium quality of it, but I saw this just on the interwebs here. Kevin Nash had, he's a laid back kind of guy, doesn't really, like me, doesn't want to tell people what he really thinks sometimes. But we've had our issues in the past, and there's some things I agree with him on. But he had a nice dissertation on one of the hot topics about the WWE, not anything they're doing in the ring, but the interference and or fingers in the creative pie, Brian, that people have been talking about from up top, from the high muckety mucks up there. Kevin Nash had an opinion. He's got the podcast. Click this. This is a transcript of it, but would you like me to read you what he says about what the head muckety mucks at TKO are doing with WWE creative?
Yeah, and again, this is someone who's one of the best friends, if not just really great friends with Shawn Michaels and Triple H, so let's hear this.
Yes, he is. This is, I'm not saying he's got any kind of inside information or anything, but it's his comment. And he says, Levesque takes over and everybody loves the direction that he's carrying the new WWE program into the Netflix era. Lo and behold, like every other business on earth, the fucking guys above him that don't have a fucking clue besides get paid more decide to start sticking their dicks where they don't need to. This sounds like me. We're going to throw this guy in. Let's put this guy in. How about him in the main event? We have a $500 million deal that this guy's locked into. While we're at it, let's make the arena look like NASCAR. It doesn't take anything away from Paul Levesque because Paul Levesque still knows what the fuck he's doing. If anybody out there thinks this might apply to them, how about leaving the fucking company alone? Get your fucking noses out of creative. Go fuck yourselves. Let Paul run the fucking company. I think he's still on the fence. If you guys want to cut the talent, don't throw it in Paul's lap and make him be the bad guy. Don't tell him, give me 6 years of creative process and give it to me by Wednesday. If I don't see a certain guy's name on there, I'm going to cut it by 50%. How about just go fuck yourself? How about you grow a set of balls? You walk in and you tell them, because UFC is bleeding through every tourniquet that they have, we're going to cut people from WWE to stop the bleeding from the other company. UFC is hemorrhaging money and WWE isn't. How about we tell them the truth? If something happens and Triple H is no longer at the helm because there's some type of power play, I hope you follow my lead, because the minute they fuck with him, I'll have nothing to do with that product the rest of my life.
Well, it sounds like he may not have anything to do with that product for at least a little while. I don't know how welcome he's going to be right now.
I think they're immediately, Kevin, can you please come do TV Monday? I
agree with the general thing that we've talked about. TKO's interference, TKO looking at WWE as just a piggy bank that they can crack open and take everything out of, and that wrestling fans are stupid. They will pay anything and they can sell them anything. UFC, despite getting a ridiculous deal from Paramount that Paramount's going to lose money on, UFC isn't what it once was. We're still supposed to believe it's this big hype thing. If you're into it, you're into it. If you're not into it, name a star. Name a fighter. You can't anymore.
From current, not
from the
past.
Current generation, the last 6 years, 7 years. Since Conor McGregor fucked off and Ronda Rousey left and everyone else who was a star aged out or got concussed or whatever the fuck. There's no one there. So WWE, look, Ari Emanuel all of a sudden is getting $71 million in compensation, a 200 and something % increase from that graph we read on the show. Where do you think that money's coming from? And they see wrestling as just this thing they could suck money out of, and clearly they don't have respect for the creative. On the other hand, I know that Triple H is Kevin Nash's buddy, but I'm not sold on Triple H all the way. He may be the best available option as a barricade against TKO running wild with the creative, but I'm not sold on Triple H being a booking genius or being able to just have the best ideas. The idea that, it's like the Road Dogg thing. I mean, is he writing the show for TKO or is he writing the best show that him and Nick Khan think should go out there?
Here's the thing, though. And yes, I recognize there is some factor of Kevin Nash is painting Paul Levesque as Eddie Graham here because he's his best friend, but it's an interesting perspective he has on the rest of the hierarchy. But Triple H is not a booking genius because Triple H is not the booker. Triple H is the head of creative. If you are the head of creative, he can't sit down and physically write all that shit. And with all the other shit I'm sure that they've got going on, plus the fact that he's had a heart condition, he's not doing the old-fashioned booker thing where you're at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're like, oh, wow, okay, the guy, and then he ducks and he comes out with your figure and finishes. He's got a staff. Obviously, we've seen he has a large writing staff. And I don't know that there's particularly booking geniuses on that either, but it wouldn't matter if there was, as we've talked about. A group effort is going to prevent anything from just really being the total dog shits all the way through instead of just a segment or two. But a group effort is also going to nullify any booking genius that happened to wander in there because he don't have total say and everything gets screwed up anyway. So what you've got is kind of like a
WCW, Jim Herd.
Well, no, an assembly line version of creative where people are putting different parts on the thing as it goes by. And it's not just a craftsman who has made this thing by hand from scratch, nor is it some complete fuck up standing outside of Home Depot trying to pick up work for the day. It's just, it's palatable. It's in the middle. It can never be one or the other with this big of an operation. So, you know, even if Eddie Graham walked in, are they all just good? Well, if it was actually Eddie Graham, they would all drop to their knees and genuflect or have a heart attack because he'd been dead for 40 years. But if a guy with that much sense came in, many of the other ones wouldn't realize it, and his shit would be just in the mix.
Again, the creative process, TKO or not, the creative process is not a process conducive for good wrestling television at all.
No. And let me say something else. There are pockets, like anything that Heyman's involved with, he's going to have the authority to punch up a finish or change wording in a thing or whatever, but there's still, you know, Paul just can't say, I don't think Brock should lose that. Or, you know, he's not calling all the fucking finishes from start. But there are people, that's why some people shit's better than others. Punk has a little bit of a mind and the ability to fucking say a couple things. The top guys, most of them, some of them are just, they are what they are. But that's the thing, is it's better than as we've mentioned, the fucking $100 million men in corporate starting to say, well, you know, stick goddamn Jelly Roll in the tag team champions because we can do a cross promotion and sell the belts on his tour that he just canceled or whatever.
Again, it's not a very rosy picture for wrestling's future right now. I'm not saying anything's going out of business. I think AEW and WWE both may still exist in 5 years, 10 years.
No, they're going to go on.
Yeah, but the state of American wrestling and American wrestling television is scary. We see what TKO's priorities are. I don't think they're ever going to get to a point where they go, you know what? We've made enough money. Let's reverse course and make this fan-friendly. Unless people stop going, then all of a sudden you'll see ticket prices drop. And it'll be fan-friendly Tuesday or whatever the fuck.
Well, but if you drop tickets to something that people aren't fucking interested in, it's, you know, that's... The problem is it's just going to be... They may make, like, said, Shapiro or Ari or whichever one was talking. They may make new fans who are into whatever this is turning into. But, you know, they're going to piss people off also because they're getting less wrestling and more falderall. And not even the kind of sports entertainment wrestling that you and I have been pissing on a lot for the last 15 years, but just theater wrestling. This is theater in the round now.
And by the way, what happens to TKO and WWE and UFC if the Saudis pull their money like they just did out of Live Golf? What does that do to the business model? If the Saudis say, you know what, we're not going to do any of this. We're not going to give you $50 million a show, whatever the fuck. And again, they have a deal. It's not just a WWE deal. Talking about funding for TKO, talking about UFC, Zuffa Boxing, which is now a part of this whole thing.
Thank God they got the pro bull riding to bail them out.
They are trying to create a combat sports monopoly, TKO, and I, for one, do not like the direction it's going.
I got an idea. Why don't we kind of cross promote between their companies and do a thing with Power Slap and the pro bull riding where you get to slap a bull and then the bull gets to kick you.
I would pay to see that. I don't know if I'd pay.
To see that.
I don't know if I'd pay. I'd watch that. That may be a better way to put it.
No, I would. It depends on who's slapping and then getting kicked. I'd pay.
You know how you know there's no money in Power Slap? TKO hasn't gobbled it up. TKO's like, you know what, Dana? You could have this one for yourself. We'll just let you have that.
Well, then when the lawsuits start coming in, I'm sure Dana's indemnified, but they don't want to, with a $20 billion company, they don't want to fucking go through all that shit.
Well, we'll see what happens with WWE Creative. And Jim, on the topic of WWE Creative, we're going to talk about Backlash in a moment. But first, as a palate cleanser, you may need some wrestling history to read about. You may need some Jim Cornette action figures and the Midnight Express to play with, well, whatever you need. Cornette's collectibles. Here's Jim.
You need somebody to play with out there, you lonely souls. Well, get the action figures and all that, and the t-shirt that you can wear while you're alone, and the picture that you can look at autographed while you're alone, and all those other things you can do while you're alone to my image at jimcornette.com. And some exciting things we're going to talk about to start. The summer is almost here. And so we're going to be talking about some exciting things over the summer, because we have a big anniversary of mine coming up as well. JimCornette.com.
At JimCornette.com. Big anniversary. The scaffold?
No. I'll spill it here then, since you're twisting my arm. Do you know what July 4th, 2026? What that date marks, famous in wrestling history?
Great American Bash, 86.
No. Well, there was one, but that's not the famous thing I'm thinking about.
I don't know.
That is the day that I took the photograph that became the first photograph that I sold and the first money that I made from the wrestling industry.
Oh, wow.
50 years ago, July 4th, it was a picture of Bill Dundee at the Louisville Gardens. And I had just gotten my first 35 millimeter camera, and it just turned out just swell. And when Teenie saw it a week or two later, she said, that's when she said, could you get 100 of those? And I said, sure. I had no fucking, I'm going to the goddamn Wishes drugstore over here to get my shit developed, right? So that's when we found the Full Tone Photo, the place downtown that was, the guy that was managing it or owned it or whatever, can't remember, it's been so long at the time, was a friend of the old man that used to do the timekeeping. And he said, well, you ought to go down there to so-and-so and at Full Tone. And we did, and they did, and boom. And a dynasty was born.
They went out of business as soon as Jim became a manager.
Yeah, that's it. I looked back, and some months my bill there was $6,000, and this was like 1981, 82.
Wow, that's incredible.
So that's 25. They lost $250,000 a year account in today's money when I went to Georgia. Oh, Christ. Well, that's the way the fucking Full Tone Photo Company crumbles.
Well, Jim Cornette, the Full Tone years will be coming out soon from Cornette's Collectibles.
Yes, actually, you're gonna be surprised how close you are, but we got some ideas, but we'll talk about it later. But that's my anniversary.
Well, check out what's there now, anniversary or not, JimCornette.com. Jim, WWE had another premium live event, WWE Backlash, seemingly a result of the fan backlash after WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I don't know why they call it Backlash. May not be the proper name for this. But Backlash 2026.
About apology or make good. WWE make good.
Well, we'll find out how good they made it this week. WWE Backlash, including the first hour on ESPN2.
Well, and the thing is, now, again, I was confused for a second when I went to my TV. I can't just turn on the channel or even use the cable box. I got to go to the apps and I got to figure out, and the fucking ESPN thing is along with the I never think to hit Disney, but it took me a couple minutes. I found it. I click on the show. The entire show was 2 hours and 32 minutes long. Did you notice this?
As it was happening, I was like, unless they have a whole bunch of bonus matches, this is going to end pretty quickly. And it did.
And again, I know somebody out there is going to say, that fucking Cornette, he's never happy. God damn, as Mama Cornette would say, he'd complain if you hung him with a brand new rope. But no, there's a difference between 5 or 5.5 hours of just repetitive, mind-numbing car crashes and stunts and stupidity from the indie-minded folks over at AEW, and the other extreme of now a premium live event with 4 matches and a gimmick match. I'm going to view the one match like they had DJs in the ring or something. We'll talk about that in a minute. But now their whole show with commercials and everything is 2.5 hours. And I was like, couldn't there be any?
It was slightly like a minute or two longer than Raw this past week.
Yes. And we got 2 really good matches, and then the other stuff we'll talk about. But again, I just think back, hey, Vince, it's a pay-per-view, but you know what the fuck? Here we got 2 main events, so let's just fill it out. He'd have gone out of his mind. But anyway, and also now who's lying? Did they have 15,000 people in Michael Cole kept saying over 15,000, but I heard that they were thinking they were going to be lucky if they got 13, or does that count? Did they go down to the beach and give away 2,000 tickets real quick? What happened here?
According to WrestleTix, WWE Backlash at the Benchmark International Arena in Tampa, tickets distributed 14,746, announced 15,215.
Well, they're not too far off. But they, as you mentioned, they started on ESPN2 and they did the first hour. And when we get there, we'll mention it again. But I don't know, what is the purpose of that now? It's not like the pay-per-view shows where we used to have like the TBS show on Sunday night from 6 to 7. The pay-per-view would start at 7. So we would say, okay, everybody, at 7 o'clock, it's on pay-per-view. Make sure this is just telling them to change the fucking channel. They don't have to pay for anything. They have to go to the app, which many people get for free. Other people have already gotten because of the WWE. But are you going to go to the trouble of, oh shit, the show's half over, I need to buy an app and fucking get that underway to make sure I see half of the last half of it? Brian, what's the strategy here? It's just exposure and they don't care if it's confusing?
ESPN wants the content, and however they see the value in it for what they're paying for, that's what makes sense to them. It'd be one thing like AEW, not to justify their general booking philosophies or formatting, but their pre-show, Tony Khan usually gives people at least 2, maybe 3 to 4 matches. And then the card that was built up on TV, even though they announced some of the pre-show matches in advance. Right. But it's a teaser, allegedly, that's supposed to make you want to buy the pay-per-view. Now they've even had battle royals or casino matches start on the pre-show and go to the pay-per-view to try to drag the viewer. Just make sure they get them by the collar and drag them.
Kicking and screaming.
And according to Dave Meltzer and Tony Khan, the pay-per-view numbers have consistently been, give or take, 140,000. So whatever their strategy is.
Suspiciously so, no matter what the attraction, date, time of year, competition, it's about that.
Allegedly. And it depends who you are if you believe that or not. But that's their strategy. WWE's, it's just like, nope, they're already here. Like you said, it's just switch the channel from here to the other thing. It's not like you get a better experience on the app. You're getting the same commercials, same commercial breaks. And they gave you two of the matches.
That you can't fast forward.
Yeah. The idea that it's a 5-match show and 2 matches are on TV is just crazy to me. Especially, I mean, unless it's a big match that like you have to see, you know, Hogan, Austin, plus other matches. You know, something you have to see, then it really doesn't matter. It's like an old boxing main event. You're building up the big main event, but that's not the way they do it.
But if you're already on the app, you're seeing it anyway without ESPN's, involvement in the thing. Except you get that annoying graphic for the first hour of the show. Switch over.
Well, that's the other thing. ESPN app. It's not a pleasurable watching experience. And if you don't have the app and you don't want to pay $30 a month to access a 3-match pay-per-view, and you have cable already, I think it would drive you more to Twitter or something just to see the clips as they go up.
What about drink?
You know, like there were people
drive you more to drink.
Remember in the old days, and I had to do this every now and then. Every now and then, I couldn't convince my dad to get a pay-per-view. Usually, it would be like a WCW one. Like, oh, I got the WWE one. I'm not getting this other one. But you could still watch it. It would be scrambled. You could hear what was going on.
Yeah,
I could listen to the commentators. It's just I couldn't see shit. You do what you got to do sometimes, and.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, I was already of the age of maturity by the time that pay-per-view became an actual thing. So I was able to make these decisions for myself. And because I was on it, the only pay-per-view that I ever ordered that I wasn't actually on was that Rolling Stones concert they did in what? 88, 89. There you go.
Wheels.
And I still have recorded it on beta at the beta 1 speed. My super beta machine fucking looks clean as a whistle. Why is a whistle clean, Brian? It should, like you're blowing in it, should have fucking phlegm and germs, and then some mildew grows, mold because of the moisture.
Maybe it's as clean as a whistle in terms of the sound. Clean as a...
That sounded a little muddy.
Hey, come on now.
Anyway, they opened the show. You want to talk about the show now? They opened the show with Seth Franklin Rollins and Braun Breaker in this long-awaited grudge match that we thought we were going to get at WrestleMania, and instead, it opens the show at Backlash. And, you know, again, they give us 2 upgraded matches, this one and Jacob and Roman. And there's nothing to knock about this match. We're just because we didn't like the rapper it came in, that we had 2 really good fucking matches. And I guess we should be thankful these days, because how long is it between times we see really good fucking matches? But I'm telling you, Braun Breaker is the more I see him, within 2 years, maybe 3, is going to be the fucking guy. He's unnaturally, he gets this. When they started hot and Seth was kicking his ass, Braun was feeding him. He was in the right places. He had the right reactions. There's some times he seems like he's out of control or reckless when he's not really, which is kind of like what Rick Steiner worked like early in his career. And he's aggressive and he has the fucking tools. And Seth, he led this thing to where that Braun looked aggressive all the time, stayed on him, didn't get lost, wasn't hesitant, had heel attitude. And the people got with this. This was a great crowd, all night, even with some of the stuff. And I was like, oh, yeah. But that's the thing. Seth was keeping him coming, making him fight to shut him down. And that one, the Breakensteiner, here's my thing. I think that Braun is leaning back so far before he hits that thing that his body is turning faster than anybody can take the bump.
So it creates a delay. Yeah.
So it creates a delay. Do you see what I'm saying?
I saw it in this match specifically, and Rollins is usually pretty good at this kind of stuff. And Braun would hit and he would land, and then you'd watch Rollins tumble afterwards, and it throws off the look of the thing.
Yeah, and also sometimes it throws off the guy taking it because he's like, oh shit, where'd he go? And I know it's athletic for Braun to be that when he jumps up and whoosh, that fast, but I think he needs to go into the leap to the head scissors before he's leaned quite so far back to slow down his spin so that the guys can keep up with it. But that's just me. And then there was a time later on when they did it twice more. I think Seth was going to land on his feet on the first one, and he saw that it wasn't going to happen, and he just took one and said, fuck it, do it again here in a second. And that when he landed on his feet. But again, they had a great fucking match to me. And I think Braun needs to watch his punches to the head when he's, on top of a guy. But having said that, I'm thinking that he may be one of those guys that they've said, please don't hit me anymore when he gets, going, and maybe he's erring on the side of safety. He did the clothesline off the apron onto the desk. And then the only thing with Seth, a lot of times he's got the modern style where he will give somebody a move and then immediately the other guy will give him something, or he likes to do the superplex into the Falcon Arrow, whatever that may be, which I always thought was goofy because that kills the fucking superplex. But then this time he superplexed Braun, and Braun picked him up and hit the Falcon Arrow. Anyway, modern style. Finally, it looked like Seth was cooking, and he hit the super kicks and the pedigree and the stomp, and then Paulie jumped up on the apron. And I thought Seth was rolling out where he was going to go get Paulie, but he grabbed a chair and he smelled it coming that Logan Paul and Austin Theory were coming to attack him. So he beat the shit out of both of them with the chair and then got back in the ring. But Braun speared him and got a 2 count. And that was a big pop. They've been getting big pops, but that was a big one. And then Braun went for the spear, but he fucking dove into a pedigree. Then Seth went for the stomp off the second rope, but as he was coming through the air, Braun hit him in midair with a spear. And then another spear, boom, 1, 2, 3. So there was interference, but it was early on, and the way that they framed it didn't affect the finish, and Braun got a fucking big win. And in this case, while Seth had an out, I'm always wanting the heels to cheat, which technically they did here, but Braun didn't have to pull out a fucking brass knucks or the dynamite diamond ring or whatever and knock him out. He beat him with his deal, but because Seth had been momentarily distracted. So again, serious match, 2 guys that know what they're doing. They didn't have to bury the referee. They did some fucking stuff on the floor, but it wasn't like a garbage match where they're out there for 3 minutes and they didn't have to fucking have no disqualification. So this is, if they could put together a pay-per-view about 6 or 7 of these kind of matches, that would be a wrestling pay-per-view, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was good. I'm glad Braun went over. It was on ESPN, not on the actual regular card. Not that that matters anymore. But this is a good match.
Now, the question is, after you've seen that, we're already halfway through the hour on ESPN2, and they're about to give us Sammy and Trick, which is again, was good. Professionals. I love Trick. But after that, you get on the one channel, what is the use of changing channels. Or if you don't already have it. If you already have the app, you're already on it to begin with, aren't you? Or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
But nevertheless, would you like to move on to Sammy Land?
No, let's move on to Trickland.
Okay. The United States title, Sami Zayn and Trick Williams with our man Little Yachty. And they've completed a double turn here without anybody, and this is difficult to do, without anybody really just changing their whole goddamn philosophy of life. Trick just got more lovable with all of his pageantry, and Sammy got more whiny with his already well-meaning whininess. Now, does that kind of what they did, right?
Triple turn if you count Lil Yachty too, who's popular. Well, he's over. They were chanting for him at one point to get involved.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't think they had an opinion either way on him at first, but then, they were, oh, okay, this he fits. But I mean, they did this again, had this match where neither guy completely went out of their personality, but it just the way that, like when Sammy threatened to use the stairs, or when he menaced Little Yachty, and when he got aggressive and started really punching Trick, and they would have cheered all these things had the manager and the other guy been heels, but because it's the people they like, it's still not Sammy going out there and pulling out goddamn chains and setting people on fire or whatever. But they got, again, all over Sammy for doing anything in a positive fashion for himself, and they cheered anything that Trick did well. And they were chanting, Sammy sucks, Sammy sucks. But Trick, again, I think he's come a long way since we even first saw him. Seems like he's more confident. And of course, Sammy, it's easy to work with Sammy. They got the people in the fucking false finishes. And then finally, when Sammy had done a leapfrog and sold his knee, oh, golly. Oh, I'm hurt. And Trick went over to see what happened. Sammy small packaged him. Well, that's all the people needed now. So, now, fuck this guy, really. And then as soon as Yachty drew the referee, Sammy grabbed the cane and whacked Trick. And now, but he got a 2 count. And then Sammy got more heat on him, and the fans are getting more pissed. And that's when they were chanting, Yachty, Yachty. And as Sammy's in the corner trying to go for the kick and the referee's checking on Trick, Yachty came up and hit Sammy with the fucking cane. And again, it's a bizarro world reaction where the guy, well, not alleged heel, they know, but he originally was the heel and the manager. Now they're like, yeah, it's like me, hit him with the racket. And then when he hit Sammy with the cane and Trick hit him with the spin kick or whatever, it was a 2 count. I'm like, oh, now they need to go. They really need to go now. But then Sammy went to the floor. Did you see? He got a little pissed off at Yachty. Did you catch that?
I did not, no.
It's not a good, if anybody wants to go back and watch it, it's not a good camera angle for you to see it. And the announcers didn't call it or anything, but after the Yachty had hit him with the cane, also, because did you see Sammy's back? And I know he's translucent because he's a redhead, but his fucking back had a big stripe on it from the cane. Sammy went to punch Yachty, and I think it looked like Yachty just he's not a worker, right? He ducked, he flinched, he fell too early. Sammy missed him. And so Sammy got back on him and whacked him a couple of times and kicked him and threw the fucking cane. Like he was like, motherfucker, you moved. Anyway, then Sammy DDT'd Trick on the stairs and gave Yachty the kick on the floor, but then he went to give Trick the kick. But Trick moved and hit his knee 1, 2, 3. That's what I'm saying. I think after Yachty did the fucking cane shot and Trick hit the spin kick, that should have been the finish, because then they just took an unnecessary bump and Sammy got mad at the manager and then they went home anyway. But otherwise, bravo. Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, I thought it was all right. We haven't really discussed it, so this is the time. I thought the match was all right. I think Sammy's been great as a heel, or however he's conducting himself right now, heelish. I think Trick and Yachty are fantastic together. The Ginger Man shit has gotten out of control. Gingerbread, I guess. Gingerbread Man shit has gotten completely out of control. They had a funeral on SmackDown. Did you see any of that?
No, I didn't, because I heard about it.
When I say a funeral, he was in the back and they were just extras, just people you've never seen on this show before standing around in black crying. Ridiculous.
Well, yes, and they said even some of the reaction internally was mixed. But it's one thing that the heels brought out the Gingerbread Man to fucking make fun of Sammy, and actually the heels were the baby faces. And it ended up working into the story, but no, that's the same thing as when the idiots at AEW got too full of themselves and started going along with Toni Storm being a legitimate movie star, or just going along with Toni Storm instead of thinking she was crazy. And it's the same thing now, as people are actually reacting to this goofy thing, allegedly. That's where they go too far, because they can't help themselves, because they think they're in the fucking movie business instead of the wrestling business.
The Toni Storm stuff played out in front of the fans. It's more of an indictment on the AEW fan than it is anything else. The Gingerbread Man thing is nowhere near as over. It was just a few appearances for 2-3 weeks in a row. And then this funeral thing, I think it's more over to whoever's idea it is than to any other WWE fans.
Yeah, that's the thing. And instead of, again, when you have allegedly legitimate people unaffiliated with this goddamn, Gingerbread Man angle that are just crying because, oh, the poor gingerbread man, fuck you.
Well, that was the second match on the show, also the end of the free hour on ESPN2. And we are ready for the main card, or the continuation of the main card, whatever it is that's next.
Well, thankfully, they didn't put this next match on the, hey, look at what we're going to show you on the other channel. Switch now, because people would have switched channels all right. I'm sorry. They just can't help themselves from going too ridiculously far with silliness. And it's allegedly supposed to be, until they rebrand the fucking thing, a wrestling entertainment program. Miz and Kit Wilson against Danhausen and the Mystery Partner. And there had been speculation, and I said it would be a great thing if they did, if it was Punk, because people know that Danhausen and Punk are friends, right? And I said that would be, at least it would be a cool pop for the people in the building, and it could be done easily and with no wear and tear on CM Punk. If they were scared, oh, we don't want him to get hurt in a fucking meaningless match, it wouldn't have been. But instead, they have to do Gilligan's Island. It's just ridiculous. And everybody's heard by now, Danhausen comes out well, they did the comedy video to recap the gimmick, where everybody's literally chewing the fucking scenery up, overacting and playing it like a goddamn vaudeville sketch. How about you, man? And then the door is lit up and it's Danhausen music, and he comes out in the Danhausen mobile. And he goes over to the cloning machine, which is a box. and he opens it, and a fucking mini Danhausen comes out, hops in the car with him, and they drive to the ring. His partner was a mini from Mexico, dressed and made up as Danhausen. But then this went so long, and it wouldn't stop, and it was so fucking not, I mean, the mini from Mexico can do some wrestling shit. But here's these two grown, allegedly adults, having a stooge for it. And at the same time, again, you know, when I wrote the words chinlock on midget, I'm like, what are we fucking doing here? They're having a serious match. They had not a serious match, but they had an alleged wrestling match with and then there was the besides the fact that the mini beat up both of the grown heels by himself for a while, so that then they could get the heat on the midget to give Danhausen the tag. And he made a comeback, and he blew up, but then he hulked up. And he tried to curse Miz, but Kit got in the way. And then the mini came back in and did a big dive, and the midget chased Kit to the entrance, but Kit locked him in the cloning box. But then the lights and the smoke came up, and when the door burst open, there was another 6 or 8 of them, the minis. And they beat up Kit. And they took him back to the ring, and one of them airplane spinned Kit. But then the mini Danhausen tried to curse Kit, but Kit held up a mirror in front of him, and the announcers had to say that was smart on his part because the curse bounced back on the midget.
Smart.
But it was only a 2 count.
Not so smart.
Because Danhausen made the save. And then the Miz, for whatever reason, they're going to use the fire extinguisher spot. But he can't make the fire extinguisher work until he looks directly in it and sprays himself in the face. And then Danhausen hit a kick on him, 1, 2, 3. And that was just the low points. There was a lot of other stuff that was the most preposterous, phony shit that I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I can't add too much more to it. A lot of people love the Danhausen stuff, and there are elements of it that I have enjoyed and laughed at. Length isn't one of them. And this went a while, and like you said, the fire extinguisher spot, I've seen it done a lot cleaner a lot of times, so it didn't look that great. And
well, but besides that, I mean, at this point,
I hate to kill everything, and everyone thinks
you've skipped over the cloning box.
Well, everything that comes out of a box is over, especially if it clones multiple times.
We never put any clones in it, but again, in the context of having an actual wrestling program where everybody would have gotten over just the same without the silliness and the tomfoolery and the phoniness of everything, let Punk come out. Here's my partner, Danhausen. Like a Mussolini. Here he comes, and there's Miz and Kit both standing there with their jaws open, and Miz says, why would you lower yourself to associate with this fucking guy? And Punk has said, just because I want a chance to punch you in the face, and punch him. Boom. Bell rings. Danhausen does his shit where he beats up both of fucking Kit and Miz instead of the midget. And then he gets in trouble. And then Punk goes and plays cheerleader until he can get the tag. And then he comes in and throws 2 punches each, a knee in the corner, a bulldog. And fucking then they do a little curse spot where fucking Punk ends up fucking hell throwing the guy to Danhausen to give a goddamn go to sleep to 1, 2, 3. And the place would have blown. And then you have told the people that on any premium live event, anything can happen and any major star may show up. And you've made those people there ecstatic in the building. And you haven't done a bunch of phony bullshit out of a goddamn weird science movie. Instead of Kelly LeBrock, we got midgets.
All different sizes, too. It wasn't like it was one uniform size because it was a cloning machine. They just, anyone we can get who...
Well, it's a goddamn wooden cloning machine, Brian, so you can't expect...
It has to be, what, aluminum to work? What are you saying?
Yes, I'm saying to code.
Oh, I didn't think of it that way. I guess you're right. Well, that was the Danhausen comedy segment. And only 2 more big matches on this show. And an announcement, and the big announcement.
I'll tell you what, I'll trade you 1 match for the 2 matches, because if after that clusterfuck you thought that I was going to watch Io Sky and Oscar in a single match, you were out of your mind, pal, fella.
Well, I watched it. It was all right, and I'll admit you've ruined Io Sky for me, and it's mostly because of what she does that you pointed out. The pointing at her fucking head annoys the shit out of me now.
How about the grunting and the constipation face?
The worst thing is the grin while she points at her head and turns to each side of the ring so they can see her. Look at my head, it's here. I hate it. Apparently, this was Asuka's last match, because a bunch of wrestlers tweeted out after the fact, "Thank you, Asuka." Hashtag, "Thank you, Asuka." And it was very emotional after she lost. She started crying. She hugged Io Sky. It appears that Asuka may be done with WWE and returning to Japan.
Well, now, and I've seen things that say, well, maybe she's semi-retired. Well, whatever that may be. But she's 44 years old, so she needs to go back home and enjoy her home and her accolades in her native country while she's young enough to enjoy it. Good for her. Stay. They deserve you over there.
Well, you have never given her a fair chance, but she was very, very good as a wrestler, especially early on in NXT. It was a lot of fun and excitement watching Asuka. And we wish her the best on her journey, travels, and whatever else she'll be doing. You know, it's kind of amazing when you think about it. She's 44. Because of the makeup, and even without the makeup, she looks good for her age. You wouldn't guess 44. Like Mina Shirakawa in AEW, you know, she just started showing up a couple of years ago. She's in her late 30s. Like, there are so many women you wouldn't think of as being, I hate to say older, but for wrestling, you know.
Well, now with Mina, are we sure that every part of her is in her late 30s or just some of them? Some parts may only be a few years old.
I don't think so. There's a natural jiggle that's there that wouldn't be there if there was anything replaced. But why don't we get away from this before we start evaluating it too much more? There was still, Jim, 1 big match.
Yes.
And a big announcement.
The big announcement that John Cena had been teasing that would shock the foundation and rattle the cage and turn upside down the entire wrestling world. I wish I had more details. And possibly it would have, but nevertheless, he was over. And I'm afraid, because when he comes out, he gets the big ovation and they chant Cena. And before he'd gone too far in speaking, they were like, one more match. That's what they were hoping it was. So, but I'm afraid they're going to, play the John Cena card too often. If every time that he's been retired since December, he was at both nights of WrestleMania, and he's been at what is that, 60% of the premium live events that they've had since he retired.
Yep.
Maybe 70. I'm not good with math. And then when he does this explanation, it started kind of convoluted. It's like they really had to think hard of a reason to to give him to explain what they're doing here. But the night of his last match was filled with opportunity. We got to see Saul Ruka and Javon Evans and Oba Femi, and they'd love to chant Oba. And he says, so we want more of that. The John Cena Classic, the best of today versus the best of tomorrow. NXT versus WWE. These are bullet points that I was able to gather. This is what he's pitching us. But they're going to crown a champion. And they're going to have a new championship. And it's good. What is it? The John Cena fucking classic champion or whatever.
Yeah.
But then he go, for the first time ever, you fans are important or whatever the fuck. For the first time ever, the fans will get to vote for the new champion. So even if a guy loses his match, he might win the title. And I swear to God, the longer that he explained it, the less sense it made, and less it seemed like that the fans were reacting to it. Because they went from, we love anything you say, to,
Yeah, because all of a sudden it becomes a pitch, and John Cena is the best pitch man out there. His voice is perfect for it. He knows how to feign, I don't know, like Dick Clark energy. Just, I'm positive and I'm here and this is great. Everything is great and I'm here.
Sincerity is the key. And when you can fake that, you've got it made.
And he does. However, if you have something you're pitching that no one's been requesting or wanting, and you can't even explain it, it's not so good. Again, this screams of TKO after everything we've seen. The idea of a John Cena championship belt that can be won by the fans saying who they choose. This doesn't seem wise in any way. Even if they lose the match.
This doesn't seem wise.
This guy won the match, but he lost the tournament because the fans voted for Randy Mulkey. Like, what the fuck? Like, what is this? What is this? Why is this? Doesn't John Cena must honestly see this as the ultimate ability to cash out. I retired, and now these suckers are going to give me so many millions of dollars to appear and announce nonsense. What is this?
Well, like I said, the longer that he went, the less the people were really behind it and more confused I was, except he got them to start chanting Oba again. Because it was kind of dragging. And then however he brought Oba up again, they started chanting that again. And then
he should have been on the show. They should have just given him a squash match just to make people happy. 5 matches.
And then he thanked Tampa. John Cena did. And it's time for the main event, which started like goddamn 20 minutes fucking later.
Thank you, Tampa. None of the things I announced will be happening here. But thank you very much.
That's another thing. At least you won't be burdened with trying to figure it out when we do it.
I don't think fans are excited by more championship belts the way wrestling promoters, bookers, or owners are. We've seen Tony Khan at his worst. Again, Tony's going one way in a rocket, and these guys are going in another way in a rocket, but a lot of the ideas are the same.
Well, here is where that they're colliding. The worlds are colliding. They're meeting in the middle. You know as well as I do that even if Ari and Mark and all of the big boys, that they say, well, we don't listen to social media feedback. They're again falling into, as we said on the show a couple weeks ago, the trap that a lot of people do, corporate people, where they think that, well, this stuff isn't really hard, so we could have a good idea. Hey, this would be a great idea. Or this other guy I'm pushing, we could put him in here. And the point is, it's not that Tony Khan is a mark for belts. Obviously, there's no denying it. The TKO Brain Trust are not marks for belts, but they think the fans are, because they see, not only do they see from these really dedicated fans that will buy every overpriced replica that they produce, but they see all the feedback on the interwebs about, oh, they won the belt or he lost the belt or he has the belt or whatever. And they say, okay, more of this. They don't understand the wrestling philosophies of the championships and etc. Almost nobody does anymore. So while they are not technically belt marks, they are entirely conducive to believing that all of their marks are belt marks. Does that make any sense?
Yes, they see this as another thing they could sell.
Yes.
That's really what this is. Go create another item that we could market.
And also because they know that there's a bunch of fans online like Tony Khan just without $1 billion. And they want to pick stars to be the booker because they know better. So this way, well, we'll put a bunch of guys in a bunch of matches and you just vote for the one you like best. It's like you booked him to be the champion. But that's what they're appealing to the people who are into this the most to see if they can squeeze any more money and or time out of them.
But if wins and losses don't matter, why even have a match? Why not just have a 20-minute exhibition where there's no end? There's no way to win. It just goes on. Wins and losses don't matter. It's about feelings.
Feelings, whoa, feelings. Whoa.
You know, this is on top of Cena being the pitchman for Club WWE, and you know, they're killing a little bit of his credibility a little more each time he comes out there right now. This announcement was nonsense.
Well, at least we didn't have many Cenas.
Well, Jim, sometimes you hear stuff like this, you just want to trudge right through the bullshit and get to the real deal. Maybe it's the main event, maybe it's good ideas, but there's a lot of bullshit all around and a lot of people have to roll up their jeans, but you also need the right pair of boots.
That's very true because bullshit is also slick. And cow shit too, for that matter. Most excrement, unless it's sun-dried and been there for a while, cured, as the old country people used to say, it's slick. And you need a work boot like the folks at Brunt Workwear make, that you're not going to slip and fall in it. You know, I did that one time, back behind the house here when I was a child, walking through the cow pasture on the way to the lake. We were going to go fishing, my mom and Aunt Lola and everybody. And I went both feet on the way on the bank down to the lake. Boom, both feet in a cow pie, feet flew out from under me, landed ass first right in that cow pie. Had to go all the way home. Walk all the way back through the field to change my pants. And that would not have happened if my mother had had the forethought to put her 7 or 8 year old son in a pair of Brunt work boots. Because folks, you're not going to end up rolling in shit wearing these. And they're also waterproof. So even if you're not going to slip because of the soles, so that way they're safe on the job, they're built well, they're comfortable from day one. You're not going to get blisters on your toes or that worn out feeling on your heel there where it's just not broke in yet and you lose all the skin. They're comfy from day one, and you can walk down the creek right in the middle of it because they're waterproof. Now, if the water is 3 feet deep, then unfortunately your feet are still going to get wet because you're under fucking water, you moron. It's going to come through the top unless you hermetically seal the top of your boots with some kind of goddamn melting type of polyurethane material, which will sear your flesh. You're not going to make the fucking boot at the top of the boot where your leg goes in waterproof. Have I made that perfectly clear?
Perfectly.
Okay, but they're waterproof because the water will not go through the boot. Just don't go swimming in these boots. And they got pants. We've talked about this, Brian. A lot of people go out, they're wearing their boots, but they're not wearing pants, and that's frowned on. Usually most municipalities would rather you wear the pants with no boots rather than the boots with no pants. Well, Brunt, they've got you fixed all the way around because they got boots and pants. Now, if you're a female, I don't know if they have shirts, you might have to go topless. But everybody has to make some sacrifices in this economy.
They have something for everybody, but let's talk about what they have for the listeners, Jim.
Well, I'm not trying to discourage the people going topless. It's something that, bring a little joy into the world. But if you want to cover up your feet so that they don't get mangled or tangled on the job site, they don't get cold, they don't get wet, they don't get covered with poop, and they're comfy and no blisters or otherwise, oh, my aching feet, the Brunt boots are there and the pants. Zero stiffness. They're lightweight and flexible. They move with you. They even have articulated knees and reinforced tool clip patches. So you can clip shit on and not rip your pants, Brian. I know that you have a problem when you're putting on your tool belt when you're going to do some high tension wire work. And these will not give you a problem. Of course, now, they're not electric proof. You can still be electrocuted in these pants if you do something stupid because the pants don't make you smarter. But the boots will protect you from bullshit. Go to right now to bruntworkwear.com. That's where they can be found. And you're going to get 10% off if you bundle a pair of their top boots with a pair of their bottom pants. 10% off on the duo right now by going to bruntworkwear.com/JCE. Use the code JCE at checkout for another $10 off on top of that. So here's what you're doing, Brian. You are bundling the boots and the pants for 10% off at bruntworkwear.com, and you're using the code JCE to get $10 off the total that you already got 10% off on. How do they do this? How can they afford to stay in business?
Well, they can, and they do, and they will, and they love the listeners, and they have a great deal. Get that starter kit today. bruntworkwear.com/JCE. 10% off plus 10% discount.
No, $10
discount.
Yes.
It's just an amazing deal all around.
It's percentages and hard currency all bundled up into, they're practically giving these things to you. And then, of course, they're going to come to your door and they're going to take one of those little slide rule things and they're going to measure your feet.
We're here at the end. No reason to start making me walk back everything. There will be no one coming to your door with a measurer thing.
I thought, well, when I was a kid, you could never get shoes without going and letting that kind of questionable looking guy fucking stick the thing on your foot. And then I thought it was some kind of code number for, okay, Jim's shoes are code number because there's all the numbers and all the directions. It looked very, the first time I got my colonoscopy was the only time I've seen something any more complicated than that foot thing. But apparently you can just go to bruntworkwear.com and just put your shoe size in and they'll just send you one that fits. They don't have to send the guy out with the foot thing.
There won't be a guy. Once again, let's get away from your Buster Browns and let's get to Brunt. Jim, one more time, that promo code, the great deal.
JCE is the promo code at bruntworkwear.com for 10% off the bundle of the boots and pants and $10 off with that code on top of that. And it's a risk-free trial. Depending on whether you, shit yourself or not, you can return this stuff if you're not happy. But I think if you shit these pants, you've bought them.
Once again, bruntworkwear.com/JCE. And Jim, we have one more match on Backlash.
Yes, we do. And that is our main event of the evening for one of those world titles. This is the world heavyweight title now, right? Yeah, because Roman won that, but that's the belt that they made up like 4 years ago when he would only work 3 times a year. So now he's got that one. And this is what I mentioned when Cena said, now it's time for your main event. And by the commercial breaks and the gaga, and then Jacob's entrance started. And then Roman's entrance took about twice as long as his entrance did. And then they did the introductions. So we were still not bad. They must have been double parked because it was only like 8.5 minutes from the start of entrances to they rang the actual bell. And I loved this match. I really did. Roman Reigns, this may have been my favorite Roman Reigns match because, normally he does all the shit that he normally does. But in this case, he was doing much of it, yes, but it was better to me because he had somebody that was actually kicking a shit out of him. And maybe it's because he felt like he had to, he's always working with Punk or he's always working with Seth or guys that are already made. And maybe he needed to make Jacob a little bit more here. And that was more exciting to me. But it was a slobber knocker, as JR would say, a slugfest. And yeah, I'm sure there was some Paul Heyman influence as far as what do the kids say, spamming a few of the Superman punches or whatever. But the people were up for this, and even if they did a big move or got a big false finish, they would sell enough to where it was plausible they would get up. They had a lot of false finishes, but they had a good pace to the thing as well. But I think the biggest thing is there are still people they like Fatu. When they did a yay boo at one point, I was hearing a yay yay. There wasn't. These were two mean guys doing mean shit to each other, but it wasn't like anybody wanted to necessarily boo either one of them until at the end. And that's what I liked about this thing the most. By the end of this thing and after the match, we'll talk about the finish in a second, but it seems like they've recognized that they cleaned Jacob Fatu up too much and they're trying to now make him more dangerous. The Tongan death grip, the shit that he's doing, whether during or after the match, where he don't particularly want to talk nice or give a shit. Does it seem to you like that they're trying to bring back what made people like him to begin with?
Well, especially at the end with the finish and the post-match. Yes. And that's what he should be. He's got to be a crazy maniac again, not a calm, here's the way I feel, Roman. I'm going to tell you right now. He needs to be a maniac. That's the way he should have come in. That's the way he should always be booked. That's the way he got over.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They were playing around with the thing. Well, I want what you got, because remember when he mentioned, I want the jet, and I want the jewelry, and I want and I want to send my kids to good schools after I get the plane, the jewelry. I don't necessarily know that harping on that, he has 7 kids. Maybe he's an absentee father or something. I don't want to see this guy or picture him in my mind as having some type of happy domestic life, right? Maybe he's got 7 kids. He's paying child support on all these sumbitches. And he was one parole violation away from going back before the WWE thing happened. And he has a moral code to him. That's the thing, because eventually he needs to be a baby face. But Jimmy Snuka was a violent, savage, jungle animal in almost every territory he was big in before he switched and became Superfly. Jacob just needs more time as the werewolf. I don't think they need to concentrate on whether he's happy domestically. And I don't even know if he would want jewelry or not. He just wants to prove he's the best. He wants to go out there and take the shit and gnaw on the bone. And then you can develop that he has a moral code, that he just wants to fucking show that he's the dominant man in the world. And if somebody like Heyman or some other shyster individuals were trying to do so, he can then blow that off. But don't make him a nice guy and don't make him domesticated for this environment. So anyway, that's what they basically did. They had a slobber knocker. At one point, Jacob powerbombed Roman through the announce desk. But there were plenty of spears and there was plenty of Superman punches and the occasional moonsault. And finally, and that's another thing, is that both these guys can sell in their own distinct way, rather than both of them trying to sell like they're Ricky Morton. That wouldn't work. But they're really milking the Tongan death grip. And finally, going home, Jacob got the grip and Roman was slumping, but he fired up and went to the eyes and they squashed the referee. And that gave Roman a chance to fucking do 2 Superman punches and then a Superman off a pop-up and a spear, but the referee rolls over, 2 count. Holy shit. And then Jacob got the grip again and Roman really fight. I like the panic. When Roman Reigns gets panic on his face, it stands out. That's the one thing about him, because he's always so calm and reserved. The panic stands out. So Roman is fighting to do something and rips the turnbuckle pad off, and it is the referee is taking it away from him. He turns around and runs Jacob into the turnbuckle, hits the spear, boom, 1, 2, 3. But all is not well in the family, because Jacob got back on Roman and got the grip. And Samoan dropped the referee. And here came the agents and Pierce and all the officials. And he super kicked poor Shane Helms and threw Pierce out of the fucking ring. Nice bump at him, by the way, after all this time. And he had the grip on Roman and nobody could pull him off. And this is the fucking werewolf, right? This is what we need to see. And then finally he got off and he started to leave. And then he ran back in and got another fucking grip. Oh, goddamn. And then he got the belt and stood over Roman. So he may have done the job, but the picture we're left with was him holding the belt and standing over Roman's carcass. So obviously this can't be over, because you just know Roman's going to have to do something about that.
Yeah. And Jacob lost, but he went over strong because of the post-match, and he doesn't lose anything by not beating Roman Reigns because of that.
I honestly wish they hadn't rushed into the story up to this point to get this match in the ring so quickly. But now if they'll step back and, well, let's do a few more flashbacks and just bring us up to date on a few more things in the family history or whatever, and give us a little bit more build up to the next one. That's fine. We'll work with them, since it's better than everything else that we're looking at.
You got to think the next thing will be his confrontation with the Usos post-Roman Tongan death grip or whatever. I don't know how you say that in that term. Beyond after Roman got the Tongan death grip.
Yes. That's they're going to have a conversation. So at least something's going on there, is what I'm saying. That, but again, in summary, 2 really good wrestling matches. Since we don't hardly see really good wrestling matches on any of the programs anymore.
Why not 3? You're saying 2, but you didn't have a problem with Rollins and Breakker. You didn't have a problem with Sammy and Trick.
Well, no, that's why I'm saying 2. Seth and Breakker and Jacob and Roman. Trick and Sammy was a good match, and those guys are pros. I mean, it's a middle of a card on a pay-per-view, or it's a main event on a really good television show, but it wasn't. I don't know that they'd reached the point yet where you'd pay to see that. Or, well, you don't pay to see anything anymore. Well, somebody's paying. But you know what I'm saying. So 3 good matches, 2 main event matches. It's come to this, that this is better than almost anything else we get lately. So I guess that's something to be happy about.
Well,
I love it when Dave Meltzer said, well, there's so many great matches in wrestling these days that you can't even count them. I can't count them because I can't find them.
Well, that means you need to study. You need to study more and read. But there it is, WWE Backlash. Their backlash against the fans continues. And Jim, we shall return right after this short commercial timeout. All right, we are here, and we're having more fun.
It sounds like you ought to be passing the collection plate.
I don't know what the hell that's supposed to mean. There's a lot of people that really get a lot of joy out of what I do here.
Do they do that in your branch? Because all of the old Southern Christian religions, they're just passing you a goddamn plate to give them some money every time you turn around.
I'm Jewish. The rabbi's sometimes nice enough to come to the house and ask for money. But Jim, let's get to a palate cleanser before we get to more contemporary wrestling and whatever else we have in store for everyone. A special edition against the program.
Oh!
This is
out of nowhere,
but a challenge for you. We're going for precision. There is no excuse for the lack of precision from you.
Oh, good Lord.
We're going to go through these programs, and you're going to give us, to the best of your ability, the location and the date. And there's no reason you shouldn't be able to do it.
And this is going to be some kind of, and see, I have no foreknowledge. This has been sprung upon me, so I don't have the Midnight Express scrapbook or anything in front of me. So you're probably going to pitch me some shit that I did, and hopefully I will remember when the fuck it was. I bet you.
Well, let's start with this one.
Because I'll look like a fool if I can't tell you off the top of my head what I was doing when I was doing it.
Jim, the opening contest, the Exterminators versus Jim Garvin and Tommy Gilbert.
Oh, okay.
The second event, Rocky Johnson versus Ken Dillinger. A special revenge match, Bill Dundee versus Bad Leroy Brown.
The bad is bad in the whole damn town.
A return NWA Southern Heavyweight Tag Title Championship match. No disqualification. The champions, Phil Hickerson and Dennis Condrey, versus Tommy Rich and King Sylvester Ritter. An intermission, and finally the main event. A return NWA Southern Heavyweight title match. The challenger, Jerry Lawler, versus the champion, Paul Orndorff.
And obviously, that is the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis, Tennessee, I would think. But hold on here. Because here's a little factoid for you, that Lawler was hand drawing the card, because it wasn't like just a
That's right.
typeset card, but it's like the comic book lettering. Was hand drawing the card during that era. And I would say because intermission, they usually only put the intermission in the Memphis card, but during this period of time, he had started doing the Evansville and Louisville inserts also. So having said that, I'm wondering if we might be at the Gardens. Well, I can tell you this. Jimmy Garvin was really Jimmy Garvin before he became gorgeous Jimmy Garvin, but after he was the skinny blonde manager Jimmy Garvin of his alleged brothers, Ron and Terry Garvin, who were also alleged brothers. And this was maybe close to the first singles run that he had since not having blonde hair and becoming a wrestler rather than a manager. And obviously Tommy Gilbert was Eddie's dad and a Tennessee legend. The Exterminators were, and they had tie-dyed outfits, and God damn it, I can see one of them as plain as day, and I can't remember what their fucking names were. One of them might have been Jim Dalton. But nevertheless, Rocky Johnson, everybody knows, Ken Dillinger, around that time, Ken Dillinger was a guy that would come into territory and he would work the cowboy gimmick, or elsewise, he could just do like Lawler made him Dr. Frank. And then I think he came back a while later on. He was Igor, the masked Igor, right? Some other horror movie mask. And he didn't give a shit. He just whatever. Dundee was working with Bad Leroy Brown, and this was leading into Lawler ended up with some type of allegiance with Bad Leroy Brown because he had a program with Dundee, and they used Leroy Brown as the first guy. And Lawler said, he could beat you twice in 10 minutes, right? And then Leroy Brown couldn't. And then Dundee beat Leroy Brown. And I'll beat you twice in 10 minutes myself. That type of thing leading into the goddamn big summer program. The Southern Tag Team title with Phil Hickerson and Dennis Condrey, they obviously were multiple time champions because Phil and Dennis would go from, this was right after the split. So Jarrett's end of the territory, the Memphis end, Louisville, Evansville, etc. And then they might go to work for 6 months for Nick in Nashville and Birmingham and Chattanooga, or then go to work for the Fullers in Knoxville and the Tri-Cities in East Tennessee. And they would just rotate around having the territory tag belts of whatever territory they were in. Tommy Rich had just come off of his first, well, I was going to say first full rookie year, but his 75 was a full year for him. So this is early 1977. And he had already had a run with the Southern title after being tag champions with Tojo and etc. And then working the program with Lawler. And it would not be too long until Barnett would find out about this cherub-faced, fiery baby face in Tennessee and make him the biggest baby face in the fucking wrestling business on Atlanta TV. I'm thinking this may have been the program that Tommy was working when, to explain him going to Georgia, well, not to explain him going to Georgia, but explain to him leaving the territory. The Hickerson and Condrey pile drove him on the concrete floor, at least in Louisville, and I think probably in the other towns as well. And they carried him out to explain why we never saw Tommy Rich again until people started getting fucking cable. This might have been that program. Sylvester Ritter King Sylvester Ritter, who they brought in with a crown like Lawler. I think they were going to try to do something with him and Lawler, crown versus crown, but he didn't stay long, and the fans were not particularly sorry to see him go, but he would later become the Junkyard Dog. And what was it? Probably a year and a half from this point, Brian, that Watts would get a hold of him?
Oh, I don't know if I can
was
get
it
that way.
long?
I think that would kind of be helping you out.
Well, I know I'm just trying to remember whether this would be May or it's between late April and late May, that 1 month period of time in 1977. And I just don't know whether it would be Louisville or Memphis.
Well, you have to pick one.
Well, oh, and I forgot Southern title, obviously. Paul Orndorff was sent to the territory after training in Florida with Eddie Graham. Eddie called Jerry Jarrett up because Jarrett's just started his own company. He said, "Hey, I got this kid that needs experience," whatever the conversation was, but here, take this fucking guy, look at him physically. He's incredible. He's going to be a big prospect. Give him some experience. So they brought him in and gave him 3 or 4 weeks of wins on TV and at the house shows. And then Lawler put him over for the Southern title. It was the first belt that Orndorff ever had won. He hadn't been wrestling in front of people, but like maybe 6 or 8 weeks or whatever. And he did a one-punch knockout because they were getting Orndorff over as a great wrestler and a great athlete. But Lawler You know, he was trying to be a baby face and wrestle because he had no experience. So they were keeping it basic, right? And Lawler made him lose his temper so bad that he just uncorked a left hand because Orndorff was left-handed out of nowhere and knocked Lawler out. Boom, and pinned him 1, 2, 3. Which was such a fucking shock that everybody, oh, Jesus. And people bought him as they didn't know that he had never, they saw footage of him training in Florida. They didn't know that he'd actually just graduated wrestling school. This was the old Hiro Matsuda training shit where they're doing back bridges with their legs interlocked and then doing sit-ups and shit. Him and Backlund. So they took him as a heavy-duty fucking guy that looked like he could kick the shit out of the entire roster, which he could. So anyway, it's Louisville. How about that?
Tuesday night, Louisville wrestling at the Louisville Gardens.
There you go.
June 14th, 1976.
Okay. All right. I was off by a month because it was
good.
This was then Lawler won it back because he was about to do the thing with Dundee, who was about to be done with Leroy Brown, the baddest man in the whole damn town.
Here's a note inside the program. Inside Ringside by Jim Black. Editorial. As you may have noticed, the price on the cover is now 50 cents. We're not apologizing for what rising paper and printing costs have forced us to do if we want to continue to give you the program that we know you want. Some of you may remember the old 25-cent programs that graced the arenas for 17 years. Granted, you got the card for the evening, but the pictures were of wrestlers in one pose, and that pose was the same every time there was a program.
Every week, every fucking week, for years, it would be pictures of Al Green with fucking hair from the 50s or what. Anyway, go ahead.
But the pictures were of the wrestlers in one pose, and that pose was the same every time there was a program with no commentary. This is going to be a quote verbatim.
Yeah.
This is not the product we offer.
Yeah.
A Action Ringside is expanding to include even more pictures. New every week. News and interviews, letters, columns, and polls with your favorite or hated wrestlers. We encourage your support and comments. Write us at Action Ringside, 4272 Westover, Memphis, Tennessee.
Is there a photographer's name on, and I'll explain why I'm asking in a minute, but you can look around at photos by somebody. Was it a Larry somebody or other? Here's what happened was in Memphis, they always had a program, as they said there, going back to the 50s. And it was a 25 cent and sometimes even cheaper back then, a program with all those old pictures and bullshit. Louisville only briefly from 1970 till 1977 had a program. This lady did it like 4 or 5 issues in 1973 or whatever, and it blah. But Louisville didn't have a program, and Evansville didn't have a program. But when Jarrett is split off from Goulas and Jarrett and Lawler, based in Memphis, new newspaper photographer there, knew the record producers, Jim Blake. And I don't know if this Jim Black, because I never met him, was a nom de plume or whatever. But
I should say, ahead. Scott Teal has always said that he was secretly helping Lawler at the beginning with the programs until Jerry Jarrett found out, and him and Jerry Jarrett didn't get along.
Well, okay, then that makes sense because, see, people are going to say, well, why do you know Cornette? And this was when I had just started in Louisville at the end of 76, and they didn't immediately say, oh my God, this guy's going to go on to be a Hall of Fame photographer and shoot all this shit and whatever the fuck. So we'll just drop everybody else, right? Like I was a doofy kid in fucking Louisville. But Lawler had the people, and he had somebody. It wasn't Scott that was going there personally and shooting the pictures. There was a photographer that he had there. And the point is, there were nicer programs as a result that then were sold in Louisville and Evansville, all of Jarrett's towns. And they did have newer pictures, mostly all taken in Memphis by, I believe, this, because it didn't look anything like Scott's work either. It was completely, it didn't use a flash, different method of photography, whatever. But then, and I was buying them up here. I didn't, they hadn't asked me to do anything like that yet. But then they got real simple, and the polls and the voting and all this other stuff went away. And the guy that was taking these kind of unique style of pictures in the locker room in Memphis, you didn't see that anymore. And then that's when Lawler started asking me, hey, give me some pictures in black and white for the fucking program. And then they had one from then on, but it didn't look like that. And they didn't go to that much trouble.
Well, there's some interesting things in this program. We'll get to some other programs momentarily. Photos by Larry Coyne.
That's what that Larry Coyne.
Action Ringside, Volume 1, Number 13, published weekly by Barbary Pubs, with cooperation from the Jarrett Welch Wrestling Company. Nothing reprinted without permission. Copyright 1977, Barbary Pubs. This program was printed on Friday, due to the matches being on Sunday. Any changes in the card resulting from TV will be announced at ringside.
Well, and remember, I've said that before, that if they were going to shoot an angle on Saturday morning TV to change the card that was going to be in the Coliseum either Sunday or Monday to add a grudge match, or, they'd done an angle or whatever, because not only the printing deadline, but also the newspaper deadline to get their ad for the matches that week in the Saturday paper was Friday afternoon. So they would actually sometimes book a false booked card and then change it on TV on the spot. And that's what people would expect to see.
You brought up the inserts in here. The insert is obviously the card for Louisville. And then there's another insert. They really put a lot into this program. On one side, it's Radamias is coming. And on the other side, get ready, Cowboy Bob Ellis coming soon.
Yeah.
And inside the insert, it has one of the great Lawler drawings of Jerry Calhoun, I am blind, sitting there selling pencils on the street. And then, is this one of your photos? It's Andre hip-tossing Lawler. It says, matches we'd like to see. Lawler versus Andre the Giant. And then it has a little form at the bottom. This is our match we'd like to see. Now tell us yours. And you fill it in. And you said,
that's not my picture, though. That's Mike Shields.
That's Mike Shields. Oh, wow.
Mike Shields from Memphis. He came up to Louisville specifically to shoot that. Because, again, that was, that was before the program we just talked about. So I'd been doing that for a couple months. So, yeah, when Lawler's working with Andre, he had the guy that had been doing it come up. And that's actually in my book, Heroes and Friends, is the picture that Mike Shields took of Lawler with a headlock on Andre while I'm on the other side of the ring taking a picture of it, which turned out cool.
Here's a picture of Lawler's ring attendant and advisor, Mickey Poole. And
Mickey Poole.
Standing there eating popcorn. What a picture to use here.
He was the fucking guy. Him and his father or family were the ones that knew Vernon Presley, Elvis's father. And the reason why that Lawler got Mickey Poole in the wrestling business is because they legitimately had floated Elvis had heard the idea. There's no record of what his response was, good, bad, or indifferent, but he had been presented with the idea to have a karate versus wrestling match in the Mid-South Coliseum with Jerry Lawler. That's why Mickey Poole showed up for that period of time, because he was the guy, from what I understand, that they knew Elvis's dad.
And this is right before Elvis died, right? Summer 77.
Yes, he's still alive. And then after, oh God damn it. I just realized that after Elvis died, Lawler turned babyface. After Elvis died, they shaved Mickey Poole's head. Then Lawler turned babyface and dropped him, and Mickey Poole was managing the fucking Samoans, not even Afa and Sika, Tio and Tapu. And then I think they made him wrestle the bear. And I don't know if Mickey, I don't think he made it into 1978. Oh, God damn it. I just thought I'd never put all that together when I was a kid.
On the back of the program, Jim, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, Blue-Eyed Soul. And the front it also mentions, published weekly in the interest of pro wrestling and as a service for the fans wishing a souvenir of the live matches. All right, you did good with that one.
The fans had been serviced.
This is a fascinating one. Sweet Brown Sugar versus Rick Morton. Bobby Eaton versus Roy Rogers. Stan Lane versus McCord. That's all it says.
It's Rick McCord, but...
The Midnight Express, Condrey Rose Austin versus Bill Dundee and Steve Kern. A grudge match. Losers will get 10 lashes each. Rick and Robert Gibson versus Cuban and Iranian assassins with heart. And finally, a special challenge title match. The Southern title and ring placed in a bag suspended above ring on a wire. A ladder placed outside the ring. First man to get ladder in the ring, climb it, and get bag wins both. Dutch Mantel versus Dream Machine with heart.
Yes. Okay. Starting at the top, Sweet Brown Sugar was at that time was Coco Ware. And the Sweet Brown Sugar gimmick had been done before in Florida and out there Southwest, wherever by Skip Young. But in this case, Coco started in this territory. He was from Union City, Tennessee, and he broke in with a Herb Welch, for fuck's sake. But nevertheless, when they switched him heel and made him part of Jimmy Hart's first family, and he worked a program with Lawler. That was his first big break. And instead of going with Jerry Lawler versus Coco Ware, where everybody had seen him for the previous 3 years, would go, Sweet Brown Sugar. But now the reason he's in the opening match is because this was a period of time where pretty much all the heels, except for the Midnight Express, were part of Jimmy Hart's first family. So they would move up and down. They were interchangeable. Coco had been in main events with Lawler. Now he's opening the show. Ricky Morton was yet to obviously team with Robert Gibson, reason being the Gibson brothers are still together and on the card here. And we know where he would go on, but at that point, Ricky had been used in the territory, but he wasn't like a main event guy at that particular time, especially. Bobby Eaton, that kid, we know who he is. He was still a member of the first family. He wouldn't switch until 1983, and this is the year before. Roy Rogers would later become Johnny Rich. Brian, do the folks remember? Am I still too far back? Johnny and Davey Rich in Continental and Southeastern, they were cousins of Tommy Wildfire Rich. They were the Party Patrol or whatever their gimmick was at that point in time.
The Rat Patrol?
No. There was a Rat Patrol.
Oh, no, that was Tonga Kid and maybe Steve
Tonga
Armstrong,
and Steve Scott Armstrong and maybe Johnny Rich.
Yeah.
But he was still Roy Rogers. And he was related to Tommy Rich, cousins, whatever. And he broke in this territory. And This was his rookie year. Stan Lane had, it's amazing. Stan had already been was on top in Hart's first family, but had also had been the junior heavyweight champion in the Continental Territory and had worked in Georgia and a variety of places. He had still only been a full-time guy 3.5 years at this point. And Rick McCord was Rick McCord from Salem, Virginia. Fine, fiery, young, blonde babyface. Okay. Dundee and Kern, it wasn't a handicap match, but they were wrestling Condrey, Randy Rose, and Norvell Austin, who were doing the Freebird Rule 3-man Midnight Express tag team here. And so they would pick, and usually it would be Dennis and Randy, but sometimes they'd switch it up. And obviously with Stan as a heel and Steve Kern teaming with Dundee, and they're the baby faces, this was pre-fabrication of the Fabulous Ones. But that's Steve and Stan had both been in the territory in various roles before, before they put them together. And Stan is just about ready, probably, to turn babyface. And they're not even, Jared hadn't even had the idea for the Fabs yet. Nevertheless, Ricky and Robert Gibson, the original Ricky and Robert, this was a program with the Cuban and Iranian assassins, and it was legitimately the Cuban assassin, Angel Acevedo, from, a West Virginia transplant. I don't know if he was born there, but he's a legend over there. But the Iranian assassin was Jack Kruger. He was Bruiser's ring guy for years, and he hauled the ring, and then they broke him in as Jack Cougar. and he was in Indiana in like the late 70s, working underneath as Jack Cougar. But his real name was Jack Kruger, but then because he was so hairy and he was a good worker in his own way, but he was a good heel. He had the big beard and he was a good bumper. And because the fuel crisis was taking place, they made him the Iranian assassin. And on the ass of his tights, he had printed in big black letters, oil. Some things are evergreen, right? And he had the pointy-toed boots, too.
He was my favorite, like, disheveled 1980s referee. Like, he just looked like a referee. He was sweaty.
That's right.
Yeah, and
that's
WWF.
Right. Because that's right after his run in the ring, he got a job doing their ring. And all their referees were guys who were on their ring crew back then.
Oil.
Oil, yeah. And then Dutch Mantel and the Dream Machine. It was I can't even remember now how a diamond ring had come into play, but it was a Southern title, and they had taken this. There had been no ladder matches per se on a mainstream basis yet, but they had taken this idea of the ladder match from, remember in Stampede Wrestling in Calgary, who was the booker then? Dan Crawford had done the thing with Brett tells a story where they had a ladder match to some extent. Well, several of these guys, I don't know who might have pitched it, but several of these guys had been to fucking Calgary, but they just had that, and they had to explain it out in the program like that because nobody had any concept of what a ladder match was or how this whole thing would work. So they had to literally write the rules out for people to be able to get the concept. Anyway, and now, but hold on. The thing is now, I thought it was going to be early 82, but I think I've talked myself into late 81. And I think we got to be back in Louisville again. You've just got a bunch of goddamn Louisville programs, what you've done here, fella. Because I think I saw this card too. But
I was thinking you probably saw this card.
But I'm gonna, Jesus Christ, I'm bad on the month there. Would I be completely out of my mind if I said that it was November of 1981?
You'd be completely out of your mind.
When is it?
The date, Wednesday, December 9th, 1981, Evansville, Indiana.
All right. I was a month off and 100 miles too far west.
Now, you would have been there, right? Evansville?
East. Yeah, I would have been there, yes. But I'm pretty sure they had the same goddamn card the night before in Louisville. That's what I'm saying.
Let me hit you with this one real quick. Again, we're going for precision, and you were at a lot of these shows, and I'm dying to know if you were at this one. Buddy Wayne versus Chief Thundercloud. The Heartbreakers with Chick Donovan versus Coco Ware and Roy Rogers.
Wait a minute, I'm trying to scribble this down. Versus Roy and who?
Coco,
okay.
8-man tag team match, Jerry Lawler, Steve Kern, Rick and Robert Gibson versus Dream Machine, Bugsy McGraw, and the Nightmares. Southern Tag title match, Mr. Onita, Masafuchi with Tojo Yamamoto versus Bill Dundee and Steve Kern. A bullwhip and fighting stick match, whip on pole, fighting stick on ladder, no time limit, no disqualification.
Tojo and Dutch.
Lumberjacks around the ring, Dutch Mantel versus Tojo Yamamoto. And finally, the main event, Southern Heavyweight title match, no time limit, no disqualification, loser to be tarred and feathered in the ring. Jerry Lawler versus Dream Machine with Jimmy Hart.
Oh, good Lord. Oh, I'm just scribbling up, but hold on here.
You jumped all over that Dutch and Tojo match as soon as I mentioned it.
Yeah, because I remember, because the fucking funny thing was putting Tojo. Tojo was 5'3", and with that physique of like a potato with arms and legs, and the idea of him climbing a ladder and that's the thing, is the place roared when he got to the second fucking step, because it was just such a sight. I got to hold on. First of all, Buddy Wayne was not the modern Buddy Wayne from the Pacific Northwest, but his real name was Dwayne Peel. But he worked as Buddy Wayne or Buddy Wayne Peel in the Southern Territories, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, etc. from the 50s. As a matter of fact, he was at the Sputnik Monroe and Billy Wicks match at the ballpark and had just made his pro debut over at the Ellis Auditorium like 3 weeks before that in 1959. And Buddy also promoted towns and took the ring places. And that may be a clue. Well, except this was a time when they were just doing big cards. I think we're in Memphis. I think this one. But nevertheless, it might be a Louisville also, because there were so many similar cards. However, if you saw Buddy Wayne on an opening match, a lot of times is because he'd brought the ring anyway and he got an extra payoff to work. Chief Thundercloud, best known in this territory as a partner of Danny Little Bear. They were a fucking impressive looking tag team visually, and they could do their shit. The Heartbreakers were, goddamn it, Joe Cagle and Rocky Sorter, who were two guys that had been working outlaw, I think somewhere over maybe in Georgetown, Kentucky or whatever. And they got a chance as a bleach blonde, underneath undercard, questionably gendered of those days type of tag team. You know what I'm saying, Brian? I don't know how to say it anymore. People tended to think they had something going on with each other. And they put Chick Donovan in their corner as their manager because poor Chick, he was a fucking top guy in Hart's family. And horribly injured his knee and was in a big cast and everything, and they were trying to find some way to keep him on the card against Roy Rogers and Coco Ware. This was before Coco became Sweet Brown Sugar. So this is the previous summer to that Evansville card that we just talked about in whatever month I got wrong, December, November, whatever. The Dream Machine, Bugsy McGraw, and the Nightmares were also all in the First Family at that time. And the Nightmares, God, I don't even know if I'd have that written down. But the Nightmares started out as Danny Davis and Ted Allen. But it won't even go down the rabbit hole of they made a switch. Ted went back to Georgia, and Kenny Wayne became the other Nightmare. And actually, no, God damn it, I tell a lie. The very first Nightmares were Danny Davis and David Oswald, who was a job guy from Memphis, and he didn't work out. And then it was Danny Davis and Ted Allen, and it ended up that they brought Ken in when Allen went away, but that's when Ken became Speed, Nightmare and Speed, because he had blonde hair and they could tell the difference. Am I going into too much detail?
No, this is fantastic.
Okay, so, and Bugsy McGraw was, he worked because he was different and he wasn't here long, and bless him, he was a wonderful guy, but he didn't have it was later on in his career, and he didn't have the snap that a lot of the guys in Memphis had, but he still had the athleticism from when he was a young fellow. But his promos were great. So anyway, Lawler and Kern and the Gibsons are the baby faces. We already know who they are. And they're having this 8-man simply to jazz up the card and make it a super spectacular, because the guys in the 8-man are going to come back and work these fucking angle matches. Dundee and Kern against Onita and Fucci, because Onita and Fucci had been sent over to the United States from Baba, and Tojo was their manager legitimately, since Tojo could speak to them and to whoever. Like I've told you that fucking Masafucci walked up to Christine Jarrett one night in the back of the Louisville Gardens and said, Thursday. And she said, no, today is Tuesday. No, Thursday. And then he starts taking a drink out of an imaginary glass. He was saying he's thirsty. Where can he get a drink? He's thirsty, right? These guys couldn't communicate at that point. So they had Tojo take him around, so he's their manager on camera too. And the fighting stick is a kendo stick, because nobody knew what the fuck that was either. Right? If you said kendo stick in 1981, which this was, people go, what the fuck are you talking about? So it's the Oriental fighting stick that the Japanese people used to beat the baby faces up with. But nevertheless, so Onita and Fucci were the team going against Dundee and Kern, and then Dutch, and I can't remember the angle, chapter, and verse. There was 52 hours of TV a year and 52 of these live shows a year in every single one of these cities. But the idea was that all the stipulations that you mentioned, the whip, which was Dutch Mantel's gimmick, the bull whip, and the fighting stick that's Tojo's, and one's on the pole and one's on the thing, and anything goes, and goddamn, somebody's going to get whipped and stuck. And then Lawler and Dream Machine, which the Dream Machine had Troy Graham, had been Lawler's opponent when Lawler came back from the broken leg. And I do remember that date, December 29, 1980, because he had been out almost all year of 1980 with the broken leg that he got in the football game, and the business had gone in the toilet. And they needed just an opponent for his return. They already had, for the rematches later, lined up Joe LeDuc to come back, Austin Idol to come back, Terry Funk to come back, Dory Funk, and blah, blah, blah. But the return was going to sell out if Jimmy Hart had a strong opponent for him. And the idea was that Lawler would beat that guy and get a hold of Jimmy Hart for 5 minutes. And, they'd get to see Lawler get even until next week when Hart got more heat. And so they sold out. Troy had never been, I don't know if he'd been on a show that had drawn 3,000 or 4,000 people at that point in his career. And he was in the main event in front of 11,069. And he did such a good job, they kept him on as the Dream Machine. And whenever the big stars weren't coming in to make Memphis or whatever, they still had an angle with him and Lawler in all the other towns. And so in this case, the tarring and feathering, and again, I've got pictures of Dream tarred and feathered. I assure you it wasn't Lawler, and it was molasses and feathers, to be honest. But that had stemmed from an angle they did on television. And Jimmy got some on him at some point also during that. Jimmy got some on him.
I love that stuff. No one could yell the name Lawler better than Dream Machine.
Yeah, Lawler! You try to treat me like a fool.
He's a masked guy with a funny way of talking, and you believe everything he's saying. It's incredible.
And
where he tackles Lance Russell. He runs out there and tackles Lance Russell.
The alley-oop video. They were making the first round of music videos, right? On with this new thing called MTV on cable. Jared picked up with the fabulous ones, but all the music videos, even before that. So they made a video of the Dream Machine, but because Troy, especially before he lost weight, he was a chubby fellow. And also there was some times where he either tripped or he was off or whatever. And they put together like a blooper take and set it to alley-oop. There's a man in the funny papers. We all know alley-oop, oop. And the Hollywood Argyles, kid, look it up. And
written by Kim Fowley.
There you go. And so it made him look like an idiot when all these other guys had got all the rock and roll music. And he came out and he was supposed to grab, nobody ever touched Lance, right? He was supposed to grab Lance by the lapels and scream at him, yes. But what Troy was coming, it was with excitement and, whatever. And Lance was standing right in front of the platform that the desk, the TV set was set on, that went up about 8 or 10 inches off the ground. So it was like a fucking little schoolboy thing waiting to happen. When he grabbed Lance, Lance's legs were tripped from behind him and he pulled Troy down with him. The people thought that Dream had taken Lance down and it looked like an assassination attempt. Oh, God almighty. And it got the thing over, but it was,
I think, and I could be wrong because there were so many great Dream Machine angles like that, but I think that's the one where while Eddie Marlin and Jimmy Hart are like helping Lance back up, and Jimmy Hart as the heel manager is like apologizing to Lance.
Yes.
Dream Machine gets on the mic. He's like, Lawler, I'm going to kill you. I mean, oh, it's so good. It's so good.
And Jimmy was apologizing to Lance for a shoot. He didn't know what the fucking Dream told me later. He's like, well, I might get fired. But but anyway, I mean, this again. They didn't do this one in Evansville, I don't believe. But this might be either Memphis or Louisville, or perhaps, dare I say, even a Rupp Arena in Lexington, Kentucky at this point, because this looks, they would want to beef that card up. So I don't think it was Memphis. I think it's Rupp Arena. And good Lord, would this be July 1981?
Either way, very impressive. Thursday, September 3rd, 1981. Rupp Arena. Lexington, Kentucky.
Yeah, I see. I was trying to back it up into the summertime because Coco was still Coco, but then again, they were about ready to shoot that. And that means that he would have had 8 weeks to establish himself as Sweet Brown Sugar before the Evansville card that you just quoted earlier.
Watch Championship Wrestling Channel 18, WLEX TV, Saturday, noon.
The NBC affiliate in Lexington, Kentucky, at a time when there were still, do you know how many television stations there were in Lexington at that point in time in 1981?
I mean, it's a pretty big town in Kentucky, 3 or 4 at least.
3. An ABC station, an NBC station, and a CBS station. Louisville had one independent station, WDRB, since 1971. Lexington didn't have one yet. So that was a station that if you lived in the Lexington, broadcast market, the ADI, as the television industry folks used to say, there was a 33 1/3% chance you were going to be watching that station if you were watching television at all. And it was an incredible get to get the station, but then it was an incredible time slot once you had it. That's why Lexington blew up like that, especially with the kids from the UK, the girls especially. But all of the people from Danville or surrounding areas that got that broadcast, and Rupp Arena was a cool place to go, and it wasn't even 10 years old at that point. So it was a big fucking deal. They were doing it. I can't imagine the population of Lexington in 1981 was 150,000 people, and they were doing 6,000 to 8,000 first Thursday of every month.
When did they first start running there? Because when was the time that Randy Savage, was it that he went after Lance Russell, or he was screaming at Lance Russell as he was going to his car? You know what I'm talking about?
Well, no, and he never went after. Nobody went after Lance. I mean,
you know what I mean. Maybe not that far, but no, get him. But
it wasn't. But no, the screaming, that was 70. They started running Rupp Arena in May 78, I think, and this was they had already been there more than a year before the Poffos became a promotion. But the confrontations happened mostly around the 80, 81-ish time period of them. Well, 79, 80-ish. And by the time that Savage and Dundee had their business, they had already, Rupp Arena didn't appreciate them doing that, gave the Jarrett guys extra security. It had been discouraged, for them to come, but they came for a number of shows and would either yell at the guys from the parking lot when they were coming in, or they got, at least once, they got the ringside seats where they could stand up and make grandstand challenges and all that shit. But they never actually got
been there for that. That must have been so great.
But they never actually got any violence, going on in or around the building. They all happen in other locations.
I always picture Randy Savage climbing a fence to yell at Lance Russell, just, shaking the fence and screaming at him.
Well, see, that's the thing. Lance came because Lance had gotten the TV in Lexington for Jarrett, because the show in Memphis was such a tremendous success, but because Lance also had the programming job background with the station, WHBQ, he knew the executive at WLEX. And he could say, look, our program's on Wave in Louisville, 75 miles away, same thing, Saturday morning, NBC station. And we have tremendous success down here in Memphis, so you ought to clear this thing. And they had it for probably 6 or 7 years in the mid 80s. Whatever the fuck happened. But yeah, it was incredible. It was the best per capita turnout in the Tennessee Territory in Lexington, Kentucky, when you consider the size of the crowds and the population.
And which channel was ICW on in Lexington?
They were on what are the call letters? Goddamn, they're still the same. They used to be a different call letter. It was a channel 62. This was a UHF channel that some people might not have been able to get it outside the parking lot of the station. It originally was channel 62 when they debuted on it, and then somehow they got an upgrade later on to it's now channel and has been channel 36, I believe.
Coincidentally enough, my favorite UHF channel is U62 as well.
Well, my favorite channel is 69. Or as Nikolai Volkov would say, 68. Give me one and I'll owe you one. But it was, so they were, yeah, that's the thing is I think they were the ABC affiliate, and it was channel 62, and it didn't have the signal, and then they upgraded during the ICW, period of time, but they started out with a really weak TV.
Well, that was the opposite of a weak guest to program, the Memphis Territory edition. We'll do that again, a themed one like that again in the future, because that was a lot of fun and some great wrestling history. You powered up the audience with great wrestling history. They are not going to get anywhere else. And you may also have to power up your devices. And I'm banging the table. But Jim, I'm going to send it over to you. You might have to
power up your segways.
Yeah. Take it, Jim.
God damn it.
Power up the Segway.
A speedball coming right a sidearm right down the line. Poop, I'll catch it barehanded. Folks, I'll tell you what, if you need to plug some shit in and charge some shit up, and we're not talking charge stuff where you got to pay for it later. We're talking zapping it. We're talking giving it the power. We're talking letting the electricity course through its veins, baby, until the power and the lightning bolts come out of the fingertips, and we're going to ride the edge of that lightning bolt all the way to Ridge, because that's where they got the power bank. And that's if you're going to have power, you need to put it in the bank where it can grow interest and then shock you with the system. Folks, the Ridge Power Bank, all jocularity aside, is something that you got to pretty much have these days, because every time you leave the house, you got to have a phone. And then these people with two good ears, unlike me, they got to have headphones. And you got to have a watch that you got to plug in and charge sometimes, because it tells you what your blood pressure is and how many steps you've taken and how much longer you have to live. And just in days, weeks, and months, they ain't got down to the minutes yet. And you got to charge up your book that you're reading, because Lord knows nobody can have anything on paper anymore. But you got to charge all these things. You got to plug them in, and they all got different cords. They all got different plugs. And it's the USB cord and the IBC cord and the HVAC cord and then the fucking FU cord. And you got to do all this stuff somehow while you're on the go in your hurry-scurry life. Brian, you have a hurry-scurry life. Do you have time to be sticking something in the wall to plug it in just willy-nilly all day long?
When you're running around and you have things to do, that is the one thing you always forget. I forgot the charger. I forgot to charge this. I forgot to charge that. But with the wonderful...
That's right.
Wonderful, wonderful Ridge power bank...
That's what it is.
You don't have to worry about any of these things anymore.
You don't even have to think about it at all. Do you remember what the name of the fucking thing is?
That's the Ridge Way.
That's the Ridge Way. They don't want you to think about them at all, because they're no problem to you in your life. And I know what you mean. You're always thinking You're always thinking you forgot. I went out the other day. I forgot I wasn't wearing any underpants. But like everything Ridge makes, folks, it's built to last with free shipping and 99-day risk-free trial and a lifetime warranty. So this power bank basically plugs all your stuff in. They've got the MagSafe wireless charging, the Apple Watch charger, the Lightning, the USB-C. They got 20 watts of power. It can charge your phone as fast as the phone can possibly be charged. It can be charged no faster then this son of a bitch right here is going to do it. And if anybody, just plug it into the local goddamn light pole or something. Just get one of those high tension cables and stick your phone in there.
That's not.
It'll just, it ain't going to charge it any quicker. It'll just zap it.
That won't do. No, don't do any of this.
And these power banks come in a variety of odd colors as well as black. I don't know about orange. Well, base camp orange. Is that like a rotted orange where
Yeah, what does that mean?
they've made the camp there and it's rotted somehow at the base of the mountain? What would base camp orange be?
Well, I have no idea.
Yeah, I'd stick with matte black if I were you folks, because that'll go with everything. Little black dress, little black charger. Wonder if these things also, you can connect those Wi-Fi vibrators to them where you can turn them on from a distance.
That's not exactly. That
would be charging of a different kind.
Because I don't think that's how this would work in any way.
That's completely different electrical transmission.
Once again, you can power your phones and of course your tablets.
And they'll vibrate if you put them on vibrate. And folks, this comes with an LED charge status indicator that tells you the battery and charge levels, and it's got an integrated kickstand. So you can just lean up on this thing, I guess, also. But it's a very small thing. You'd have to be a small person. Oh, it's for effortless hands-free viewing. While your phone powers up, you can just lean it up there and set the phone, and it'll charge the phone while you look at the phone, because nobody can get away from their goddamn phone. Slim, modern RFID blocking technology that's built to last. I'm telling you, the Ridge wallet, as well as the Ridge power bank, you get all these things from Ridge and you can be safe.
That's right.
Don't you agree?
Be safe and power up with the fine products from Ridge, ridge.com/JCE, 10% off. With the code JCE.
I forgot to mention that, didn't I? Yeah, you can save money too. Well, we always save the people money. Why would they think we're asking them to pay retail? What the fuck? You trying to live like animals? You go to ridge.com, RIDGE, just like over the ridge, down through the valley to grandma's house. Ridge.com, and use the code JCE, and you will be all set for the 10% off. And then let them know that we sent you. You can go and pay the full price over at Best Buy if you want to. It's available there. You can go stare at it there. And then don't give them the money. Go to ridge.com and save 10%.
Once again, ridge.com/JCE.
Good God.
Good God, we are here. That's Dallas Page's original catchphrase, and somehow he dropped that.
I haven't been so startled since my last colonoscopy.
Well, Jim, speaking of colonoscopies, AEW had AEW Collision this past week. I kid, but a very interesting AEW Collision. A lot of listeners wanted to get your thoughts on it, even if you didn't watch the event, which no one expected you to do.
Well,
but it was AEW Fairway to Hell Collision, taking place in a venue that is a golfing arena. But let's get your thoughts on whatever you know about this.
Golfing arena.
What else would you call it? Wouldn't you call it that?
What do they call it? What's the name of the place again?
It is
we just looked for it.
It is the SoFi Center.
But I mean, they have what kind of golf do they have there?
The TMRL Golf League, aka TGL. It is an indoor golf.
TLU.
It's an indoor golf facility.
What it looks like is a giant airplane hangar with a semi-golf course in it, with bleachers around this giant area, but it's not like a stadium. There's like 5 rows of bleachers, but it just goes around this whole thing, and they watch people play golf while they put different backgrounds up on a screen so you can be golfing in like a fucking S&M club in Soho or something where it's all virtually interactive. And the point is, it looked like they were in an abandoned bus station with good lighting. They put a golf course and a wrestling ring in it. That's why I was fascinated. There was like two rows of people kind of standing there on the floor, and then there were people up in the thing. And what the fuck? What's next? Chuck E. Cheese? That's why when you told me about the location, I looked at their, obviously we don't watch Collision, but I looked at their YouTube clips of this thing. And besides the fact who Ricochet helped Davis beat, who'd he beat?
Jack Perry.
Jack Perry. Joel Jungle Jack is over on Collision serving his penance still. With a golf club, dressed as a golfer. But at least they were in the ring. Then the clips of Darby Allin and Pac, they spent the first however long taking bumps in the sand trap and suplexing each other in the sand trap. And then, according to their own highlights on their own YouTube channel, Pac threw Darby off the goddamn bleachers of this giant place, threw 3 or 4 tables or however many it was on the floor in the middle of the match, and then gave him a tombstone pile driver on the steel stairs. And then Darby came back and beat the shit out of him and won the match. And then, are they going to be doing Collision at birthday parties next? What is this place? Why would they do this thing?
See, this is where you and I may disagree. Taking the content of AEW's matches out of it, and a Darby Allin match is a little wilder than other matches, so naturally he gets to go in the sand trap, or the bunker, as they call it at the Masters. But I actually like the way it looked. And I'm kind of sick of the way everything looks. Despite Lee Fitting, his early success with WWE changing everything from Kevin Dunn,
he's still only shooting what they're giving him.
Raw looks the same every week. Dynamite, it's a little different now because they run smaller buildings, and sometimes, like, you know, there's just a wall somewhere, like you can't get around, so it has a different look and a cool look. But there have been Dynamites that, in the past when they ran arenas, they all kind of looked the same at a certain point. So I like the idea, and I think it stands out. It's I don't know what else you could do a themed wrestling show like this, but the idea of doing wrestling in a unique venue was well lit for what it was. You said it was like a giant airplane hangar, but it looked good. I personally thought it looked cool, and I would think that could be the kind of imagery that could capture someone, but then you need, you know, good booking and storytelling.
Well,
and
but so you the venue to you didn't look bad, but you're not in favor of them actually taking bumps on the golf course.
I'm not against it if it happens. I'm not against the idea of someone taking a backdrop on the field at Shea Stadium. You know, if there's a wrestling card there. I'm not against. You know what?
Idea. But okay, but is the here, compare these two visuals. If you're trying to tell someone this is a major league spectacle of a product, whether it's entertainment or sport or whatever, a guy takes a big backdrop on the field at Shea Stadium, or a guy gets suplexed into the sand trap at a goddamn video golf fucking place.
See, I think the actual embarrassing thing would be if someone who wasn't a wrestling fan or an AEW fan saw this, that Darby was the world champion. That would be the what?
You got me there.
Yeah.
You got me there.
That was a world title match. That was a world title match.
Well, the world title match is now, they're stuck in the sand trap.
But taking the Darby match out of the equation and anything done on the floor, and again, Mark Davis couldn't beat anybody. We never saw him beat anybody. Tag match, 6-man match, tag match, singles match. Now he beat Jack Perry. Of course, he got some help from Ricochet and a golf club, but Jack Perry was fucking Frankensteinering this guy all over the place. So, I don't know what to think of it, but I like the look. I like the idea of it not looking the same every week and looking different, and big venues, small venues. I personally like the look of it.
Well, what other kind of venue is there that they could run that wouldn't have like a golf course or a fucking shark pit? Remember that game show? No, you don't. You weren't born. But when I was a kid, there was a fucking game show where the people got in these boats and they had in their studio, they had built a lagoon and the people would ride these boats around this little fucking windy thing to get their prizes and everything. What is that? What other type of indoor facility doesn't look stupid and fake and silly when you're trying to present a fucking wrestling program that already has the problem of looking stupid and fake and silly? That's why. If this was the height of WCW's in-ring brilliance when they were actually doing business too, and suddenly you'd seen two guys fighting in a golf course, wow. But when this is just a complete sideshow on such a regular basis, and now these morons are taking bumps off the balcony in a fucking golf course, it just, how much more of a parody can these guys become?
I see Tony's just announced the Highlight Brawl coming soon from Miami.
You know what? They used to, okay. In Miami, and some places in Florida, the Florida office back in the 70s and 80s used to run a Highlight building, which is some type of game that is popular in South Florida, and I'm still not clear on it, but you could get 2,000 or 3,000 people in those things for whatever that's worth. So now that maybe that'd be a different type of atmosphere.
I see AEW announced pickleball pandemonium. I can't even say it. Pickleball pandemonium coming up soon from the pickleball arena.
But it's not even a departure for them to be silly now. We got the other people giving it to us up the yin yang for as much money as they could possibly squeeze out of everybody for the absolute least they can provide. And over here, these fucking morons, it's like goddamn Benny Hill. So that's why I'm starting to half-ass be apprehensive about the future of the wrestling business. It's not in good hands on either side.
But it says great things about the future of golf. With the Saudis pulling their funding from Live Golf, and now, of course, AEW invading the golf league, the Tomorrow or the TMRW Golf League.
Why do they have so many initials? TGL Golf, TMR Golf.
I don't know. The construction of the facility was overseen by CAA Icon. There you go. Well, this is your show.
No, it's not. Not a bit of it is.
Oh, that's right.
Not one solitary second of this is my responsibility.
You know, you've been so good today that I lost myself in the moment, and I thought it was your
show. I lose myself.
Let's move on from the Fairway to Hell. Let's go to, I don't know what the hell you'd call it. I have no translation.
Yeah, well, there you go. Let's go from the fairway to hell to what the hell was this? In my old hometown of Knoxville, Tennessee, they did a Raw program. And now it's the Food City Center now. Is that a brand new building? It's certainly not the old Coliseum. Did they rename the Thompson Bowling Center where the University of Tennessee plays, or have they got a giant new arena in Knoxville?
It is
nobody consulted me.
It's the Thompson Bowling Arena at Food City Center.
Okay. Because the Thompson Bowling Arena has been the big building in town and has been there for the purpose of the University of Tennessee, but major concerts and whatever for years and years. But they've whored themselves out to the evil corporate overlords, just like every other building, I guess. Anyway, a lot of people are going to say, what did you think about this Raw? And I'm going to say to them, not much, because I didn't watch it. Except the main event confrontation. Once we got all the pesky matches out of the way.
Oh, you didn't see the open challenge, the Obafemi Open Challenge?
Oh, I forgot about that. That the Obafemi Open Challenge was temporarily halted because Pierce came out and said nobody's got the guts to face you. And then Obafemi proceeded to go backstage and find two guys and fucking throw them out there and beat the shit out of them anyway. And I think you mentioned before we went on the air that he seemed like it. This whole thing is awkward, and I hope that this is them admitting that, okay, nobody else wants to fucking fight you, so we're going to start making them or whatever. Because Oba doing it himself, as you mentioned, maybe have come off a tad heelish. Just a little obnoxious with that. But they like it anyway, right?
Yeah, but this is the most heelish he came across only because of the way they booked it. He made the two heels that he beat up in the back the sympathetic baby faces who were minding their own business when the big bad baby face came and beat the shit out of them.
We're just standing around fucking talking about where we're going to eat tonight and bam! Oh, shit.
It was weird. It was a weird way to either get out of this or extend it another week or change the direction. I don't think it did Obafemi any favors.
But then we come to the main event segment. I meant to comment on that before and I forgot about it. So again, I did the same thing I usually do. I timed the Roman Reigns entrance because the Raw this week was like 2 hours, 20 something minutes. And so Roman's entrance starts and he comes out with Jimmy Uso. And of course, they've been doing a thing through the show that Fatu's going to be coming. And boy, he better not make a mistake with Roman. And Roman's there to have Fatu acknowledge him. And the Usos have split off and Jimmy's with Roman. And Jay is waiting for Fatu to show up so he can try to talk some sense into him. But Roman starts coming out with Jimmy, and they come out to pose, and they go to the break, and that took a minute and a half, Brian. And then the break is 2.5 minutes. And then when they come back, they still have a DoorDash plug to do. And then Roman is in the ring by that time, and they do the pyro, and they pose, and they stare. And the people tried to get OTC going, but this is East Tennessee. They didn't have a lot of rhythm. They were off on that. So they started singing Roman Reigns. I could never get that tune. So at basically 6 minutes after Roman started walking out for the people in the building, he finally fucking spoke. Knoxville, acknowledge me. And then they chant again. And then before he says even another word, on screen, they've got a camera in the parking garage and there's Jay and the car pulls up and it's Jacob. Brian, what are the chances that such a coincidence would take place that at the exact moment?
Is he like sitting in the parking lot, like watching the show on his phone and then it's, all right, now it's time.
But anyway, because it's all fucking bullshit, right? But anyway, he comes out at Jacob and he's stalking straight from the parking lot and Jay's beside him going, hey, you be smart. Don't do this. The family, think about blah, 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 just all the way through to Gorilla. And finally, Jay gets in front of him. Listen to me. You can't do this or whatever. The fucking Jacob headbutts him 4 times. I wish Jacob would just do the headbutt once. When you do it 4 times, they got more time to see through it. And it's relying on a crutch and it's not plausible. But nevertheless, Then he cut the promo to the camera. Roman Reigns, blah, 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 blah. But we've established that he knows that Roman is in the ring. And all this time he was stalking to go to the ring and Jay was trying to stop him. Now he turns to the camera and says what the writers wanted him to say about Roman so that they can further extrapolate their story and then go out. And that's where it looked fake. You were following this fucking guy that had blood in his eyes and murder in his heart and evil intent. And he's having this argument with this other guy and he finally pickles a fucking other guy. He should have gone straight through the curtain and the camera should have followed him. He could have said that stuff to Jay before he knocked him out. He could have said, I'm going to tell him blah, 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 and you can't stop me. Boom. See what I'm saying? To where instead of having to awkwardly turn to the camera and cut a wrestling promo when this is supposed to be some big family fucking shoot, they should have thought of that in production. But nevertheless, out he comes. And he beats up Jimmy Uso in the aisleway. And then they get in the ring, or he gets in the ring, and he and Roman, and they have a fight. And again, remember what I was saying about Roman realizes he really has to sell and put himself in more jeopardy than normal, not only because he's in a babyface position now, but also because Jacob still needs the elevation. And he did the same thing here. He got his comeback where he Superman punched him and pulverized him with a chair like 10 times. But then Jacob lived through it where he came back and got the grip and fucking cleared the desk off and they jockeyed back and forth. But Jacob got the grip on him again and then powerbombed him through the table. And got the grip again where the officials are trying to pull him off and people are screaming. And then he grabbed the belt, Jacob did. And while the officials are tending to Roman and the Usos are all fucked up together, Jacob held the belt up and there was the mix of the boos and the cheers. I still don't think they know exactly how to react. But it's establishing him as a fucking a mean motherfucker, right? So they're still reacting. They just don't know whether they really want to cheer him, but goddamn, he's so bad, but it's going to lead to that. But then, as he was about to leave, he said all gas and no brakes. Why did I say that like Dusty? I don't know. And he ran back and ass bumped them all through, both the Usos and Roman, all through the barricade, which even though now the poor barricade thing has been overdone, that looked really awesome.
Yeah, that looked pretty good.
Yeah. So that was, if you saw that, you saw everything that your life can go on living without seeing off of Raw.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, unless you want to see Joe Hendry sing his way into a match or whatever's going on with the women's division.
Well, they've got the Vision doing jobs to Joe Hendry and the Street Profits, and holy Jesus Asuka was Christ.
There. They had a scene with Asuka in the back coming up to Io Sky and crying and hugging her and telling her how proud she is. And then she walks out of the building rolling her bag out. Why would she be there with her bag? If she ain't working and she had her last match.
No, she didn't want to leave it in the car. It's a bad neighborhood. She's afraid somebody might break in. Let me ask you, is the tearfulness and the hugs and the crying and woe about leaving each other that not only the Japanese girls, but Rio was hugging Io or whatever that they all, is this to appeal to a feminine audience? Or is this to the guys that like this kind of thing? That's the kind of thing they like also. Or are they going for the girls with, oh, you're so my friend, I'm going to miss you, on a wrestling program?
I don't know. You know, every woman who gets involved,
and some people.
Every woman who gets involved in wrestling, not everyone, but a lot of them, they say they were fans when they were younger. And then you see like a video or a photo of them that when they were younger meeting like a diva or a women's wrestler of the time. But other than them,
well, no, but
have we seen tangible evidence that the women's audience has grown, and specifically that it has anything to do with the women's usage on the show? Because I feel like the fans we hear from the most about the women, like pro women, it's always guys.
That's what, yeah. And
Chigison Nagayo and Dump Matsumoto had like the Von Erich audience. They had screaming girls going crazy, invested in those women. We don't have that here. Because again, but again, look at what they're presenting and who they're presenting it to. And if they think they're presenting it to girls, I don't think they're winning. And if this is their idea of what guys want, I don't think they're doing it well either. There's a reason.
I know what boys want. I know what guys like. Boys like. Boys
okay.
Boys like me.
Who was that? The waitresses?
The waitresses. Nah, 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 nah. Nah, 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 nah.
I hate that song.
It was a great video, though.
Which one? The real one or the one Ron Head did for his crew? That's what I'm thinking about in my head, that fucking unfortunate video.
No, the real video they played on MTV. That was a wonderful thing.
You know, again, just to end this, I feel like the reactions are weird from the fans to Jacob and Roman. Like, you don't know how to react. In one segment,
they're not still sure who's the heel and who's not, right?
Yeah, Jacob's acting like a crazy, out of control heel, not like a babyface who does something and has a good reason. He's just going crazy. And Roman, I don't know. I mean, he's a babyface now.
He's a big prick, though.
Yeah, he's a babyface who acts like a prick, but he still can't fight his own battles. Like, I don't know what. It feels like something's missing with Roman right now to me. But they're making a lot of money. Anyway. They're making a lot of money, and they love that money.
Love the money.
And that was WWE Raw. And, of course, Jim, after a depressing plate of shit like Raw, you may want to cook yourself a nice meal or maybe a burger, just something you'll enjoy, a steak.
Well, maybe something like, that they eat in the South Pacific, out there in the islands, some seafood or some guava or some coconut or whatever the case may be. You could put anything in your Hexclad. You can eat shit out of your Hexclad pans and it'll taste like the best shit you've ever eaten.
Well, again, we don't recommend that, and that may not be the best example.
Can you test? Can you say I'm telling a lie though? If you cook shit in your Hexclad pans, ladies and gentlemen, and you eat that shit, that will be the best tasting shit that you have ever eaten. I will stand by that statement.
Why don't we go with the word widget? Whatever widget it is that you cook in your Hexclad pan, it will taste better than it will in other pans. At least that's my experience.
No, widget. She was that girl midget that did porn. Widget. You're thinking, you get your mind out of the gutter. Widget the midget. She did the porn. Folks.
I don't know. Okay, back to you and back to. Let's get away from all this. Not back to. Let's get far, far away to a nice kitchen in another country. No matter where you are, you need to cook food, and we're here, and I'm hungry, and Jim, we have great pans, and of course, pans from Hexclad.
Yes, the Hexclad pans. Again, we've talked about it, that I've been going crazy with the way that these things work, that you can heat or you can sear your burgers at half the heat of the cheap old pans that you probably got. With the handles falling off and the non-stick stuff is probably scraping off and everything. You're probably ingesting that. It's going to give you some kind of cancer. If you eat like Teflon and non-stick coating on a regular basis, it'll make your balls droop. At the very least, some kind of growth will appear on your taint, which I understand the technical name for that is the perineum. So don't let your fucking taint swell up. Get the Hexclad pans. They're non-stick, but they don't scratch or peel. They'll last forever. The heat distribution is wonderful. They're dishwasher safe, but super easy to just take a sponge to. Even if you've really scalded something, it just plops right out, as I've mentioned. Stace loves it for the stir fry. You said Suzanne loves it. The saucepan, you can make the béarnaise sauce, or you can make the eggs Benedict sauce.
She's been making eggs in there. Right, she just cracks an egg and puts it in there, and boom.
Comes out quicker than it does out of the chicken's ass. Doesn't get stuck in it. So, folks, again.
Does it get stuck? What?
No, it does. Sometimes you'll see those chickens strain. And other of the cheap non-good pans, you try to get the egg out and you tear it up, prying it out because it's stuck to the thing. No, you just, boom, this comes out like the chicken fired it out when it first laid it. But Hexclad's 12-piece set is the ultimate all-in-one cookware upgrade. 3 versatile pans, 2 saucepans, a family-sized stock pot, each with its own lid, and I can't wait to see that saucepan. Do you think, is it 2 children per family or 2.5? How many people would they have to be able to get in that fucking stock pot? But you will have every tool you need to cook for a crowd or cook a crowd.
Cook for a crowd, for a crowd. Let's get I don't know why you keep going to cannibalism. You're exposing yourself, my friend.
It's a family-sized stock pot. It's going to take a flatbed truck to get that down your drive anyway. But once you get it inside and fill it up with water, and it takes forever to boil, but you put those people in there, let's fall off the bone, baby.
No, they won't. But any animal that you're legally allowed to kill and eat, you can do that with their meat. And, of course, eggs. And lots of other things.
You don't need to kill people. You can get some already dressed out and everything. Folks, with Hexclad's patented hybrid technology and backed by a lifetime warranty, this is the last cookware you're ever going to need, especially if you're elderly or in ill health. You're covered. I've said we're pretty sure. And the patented laser-etched hexagonal steel ridges boost your searing power. So just don't lean on these things or you'll have a bunch of X's all over the back of your fucking hand. So don't go through another spring using the same busted pans you should have thrown out years ago right now. But for a limited time only, our listeners are going to get 10% off your order with the code JCE, Hexclad, HEXCLAD.com/JCE. 10% off this 12-piece badass Mama Jamma cookware set that will last you forever. And there you go. And eggs won't stick.
Once again, all kidding aside, fantastic pans. If you like to cook or if you just want to impress your wife and get her something she'll love, I can tell you this does the trick. Once again, hexclad.com/JCE. Get 10% off.
And, and even if you don't like to cook, but you have to cook because you have no one to cook for you, it's easier to cook with these things. So if you're just some guy with his dick in his hand because he has no girlfriend and no one to come in and perform services for him, and you're just trying to fucking make yourself something quick so you can live to have another miserable day, it's easier in these.
All right. Now, thank you for that addition to the spot. That was certainly something that reaches an audience that we weren't normally reaching. But once again, hexclad.com.
Everybody's got to have something to look forward to.
Whether you're having a wonderful life or a lonely shut-in, these are the pans for you. But Jim...
Oh, well, most people aren't shut-ins anymore. They're just shitheads that are lonely.
Jim, speaking of, well, I won't use that word for YouTube's sake, but Jim, let's transition away. And as we begin our final section of the show here, it's been a little while and we're going to get back to Mid-South pretty soon for those who have been asking. But why don't we talk a little bit about TNA, specifically your history with TNA. Dark Side of the Ring's coming up. A lot of people are thinking about TNA history. You, of course, have been talking about it with documentation for quite some time here on the show.
Yes, I have, Brad. We mentioned this a few months ago, and we took a break from it because so many breaking news things kept happening. But I had found the first, they really weren't agent reports because I was not an agent or producer at this particular time. This is just when I'd started with TNA in 2006. Jeff Jarrett had himself asked me, hey, just do some notes and send me what you think. And so that's what I'd been doing. The reason why I'd found them is because they were actually typed. This is before I had the email like all the kids do. So I would type these up and either fax them to him or take them down in an envelope and give them to him or whatever. But so therefore, we were in July of 2006. And, you know, some of these are just, you know, not particularly all that pithy commentary because I just started and I wasn't going into major detail or whatever. So I'm not going to read everything per se, but there's just a few things that I always seem to notice whenever I saw certain people around. Rhino. And this was 20 years ago. People forget. How can you Google how old Rhino is right now? Because he was still such a young guy. People had seen him in the WWE. He's 50 now.
Born in 75.
So this was 20 years ago. He had just turned 30. And he was just in great shape and he had great emotion. And that's why I wrote Rhino, great emotion, believable. He was over live in the building. It made him seem like a star. I said, after he made the challenge, and it was again, this was when they were doing the VKM thing, initials, whatever the fuck. No, this was when he had challenged Vince, I think, or something or another. After his challenge to VKM, I have it here, but this was before that Road Dogg and Billy became the Voodoo Kin Mafia. So I think they were doing something where he made a challenge to Vince McMahon. But I said he should have quit and let him chant for him. Going further and leaving the arena felt too much for me because they had followed him when he walked backstage. Because we were in a soundstage in Orlando at an amusement park. And I said, I don't like the look of backstage being so tiny and crummy when the arena is set up to look so nice. And they would never get away from shooting because they thought it was so, well, you know who thought it was so, he wasn't even back here yet, but he over amplified the problem. They thought it was so inside to see backstage. Backstage, it looks like you're in a fucking barn, right? When you see backstage at the WWE, it's a goddamn place the Lakers are playing. Do you see what I'm saying, Brian?
Yeah.
Anyhow. So where was I going here? At one point they had Abyss versus Norman Smiley, and then the James Gang, Road Dogg and Billy Gunn were the James Gang. They made their entrance and did a promo at Abyss, and people chanted DX rejects. And I was like, I said Abyss was better off before these two came in because Billy is as tall as Abyss. He's supposed to be the giant. I died to hear people chant DX rejects. And why was Mitchell, James Mitchell, the manager, a mute at the handshake? Brian did comedy with the monster and died. This should have ended at the handshake. With Abyss and with Rhino, I especially felt because Abyss had never even been in the WWE at that point. They had something, but they never gave Rhino the full push, and they never could contain Abyss from himself doing the hardcore, the garbage stuff, the indie stuff, going too far. But I always thought that they had something there with those two. That was the July 13th show. July 20th. Here is The match is the Naturals, who were goddamn Chase Stevens, and who did we decide? The Andy Douglas. That was an early underneath babyface tag team in TNA. And then they worked with Frankie Kazarian and Maverick Matt. And since I was new to all these guys, right? Shane Douglas introduced the Naturals. And I said, good intro of Naturals. B-roll of their pay-per-view finish was good. They don't seem to stand out as individuals to me. And then Maverick Matt and Kazarian came out. And I said, these guys seem to be more popular than the Naturals. And Matt's name is ridiculous. But they started the four-way at 100 miles an hour. No time to establish who they were. The Naturals teamwork moves were good. Nice heat spot going to break. The announcers need to portray the baby faces in more jeopardy. And finally, the match part 2, decent match, but hard to tell which team was supposed to get over. The Naturals should not have had their first try at their... this was when Shane Douglas introduced them. This was their debut. Naturals should not have had their first try at their finish on national TV be foiled. When they did it, it was off. Naturals were not very dominant in their free TV debut. It's the same shit. It's been 20 years ago. Everybody wants to have a great match, and nobody wants to get the fucking point across. And when you left these guys to their own devices, even then, it was a newer generation that were more concerned with being nice to their friends than getting over on television. And then later on, Rhino had a match against Robert Adams. So it's a squash match, right? Rhino entrance, charging, perfect entrance for him. And as he hits the ring, in all capital letters, Brian, his job guy isn't even looking at him. What a dumb fuck. You're a goddamn tomato can, right? In the ring, but you're about to fight, allegedly, this man beast Rhino who's charging to the ring, dripping wet, looking like he's going to kill you. And you're looking out at the crowd like, oh, I'm a wrestler in the ring, you motherfucker. He gored him and beat him, and that was it. But if Rhino had been one of the old timers, he would have fucking knocked that guy into, his kids would have been born dizzy. But anyway, here we go. Segment 4, Styles and Daniels. They're doing a thing with LAX, apparently. Styles and Daniels entrance. AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, obviously. In street clothes, Daniels looks great. Styles looks horrible. It's always been that way. AJ needs to dress like a world champion. Good promo, but could have been stronger on the points. The confrontation with Conan was good. The baby faces were a little dumb to get suckered so easy. But the heat by LAX was great, and signing the contract in blood was nice. So we got serious at some point. But these are the kind of, these are the kind of comments that I was making, and I'm looking around for the rest of the July shows. Just a little innocuous things, blah, blah, blah. And then I found this, and I'm not sure what order these come in, because this is not dated. But Brian, do you remember when TNA Impact moved to 9 o'clock? Because originally wasn't it 11 o'clock at night, and we moved to prime time and got the 2-hour deal?
I don't recall when it was, no.
Well, whenever. It was sometime, give or take, the September-ish 2006 period of time when they also made the move to rehire our friend Mr. Russo. And And obviously, I've told that story over and over, so that's not the point of this. But this is about the same time, and now in go ahead.
And apparently, it went to 2 hours, October 4th, 2007.
But no, so but then it was still an hour in 2006 when Russo came back, and we went to 9:00. That's what it was. So originally, it was on at 11:00, which was out of prime time. Then they gave us 9:00, which was in prime time. And then a year later, we expanded to 2 hours. But point being, when we moved to the prime time slot is when at the same time, as we've figured out in hindsight, Dixie either fell victim to her worst instincts or was worn down by constant begging on bended knee and brought him back, right? That was around September of 2006. So
Jeff wasn't talking to him at that time?
Well, I don't think, I'm not saying that they weren't speaking to each other. I don't know what the fucking, issue was. It's not like that they weren't dealing with each other, because he worked with him when he came back. But who was making who said, boy, we got to have him back here? I don't believe it was Jeff. I believe it was Dixie. Because that's when, from what Dutch told me at the time, because he was the only one I was really talking to regularly, D'Amore had tried to go to Dixie and fucking undermine Jeff and say he ought to be the booker. And Jeff was a fucking idiot or whatever the fuck. And D'Amore had maybe somebody else on his side or whatever that was on the creative team. And Jeff caught wind of it, as they say. And suddenly D'Amore and whoever was off the creative team. And it was just Jeff and Dutch. And I said, well, that's an improvement anyway, because you can get more done without everybody sticking their finger in it. And he said, well, and that's when he said that they'd also hired Russo back. So
thanks, D'Amore.
So, yeah, so maybe, because goddamn, she said, well, if you want to get rid of them, we got to get somebody. I don't fucking know.
Fucking Canadian Bob Roop. How many times did he try to steal the company?
Yeah. And Mike Tenay almost had me talked into fucking doing creative at one point. On the phone in 45 minutes, he'd fired me. He'd like, well, you're only 3 hours from Nashville and they only meet a couple of days a week. And you could just, Bobby would have to spend one night and then you could stop this and that. We're talking about how to stop Russo's fucking insanity, right? And you could possibly stop that, whatever he had me worked up to. And then I realized, wait a minute, I'm still in the goddamn meetings with him. I would still be subjected to him. And it would just end quicker than it's going to end. But Mike Tenay was a silver-tongued devil. Anyhow, this thing I'm going to read right now, but I'm just telling you the time period that we're getting into. But the thing that I'm going to read to you right now is what was in anticipation of TNA moving to 9:00. And you know what? Here it is. I found something else. Well, I'll get into that later. Point is, this was a letter that I sent, or not a letter, but a report I sent to Jeff and Dutch on ideas I had, because now they're moving to prime time. I believe this was before I knew about the new hire, but at least I knew about the time slot switch. And this was also about the same time that Jeff asked me if I wanted to be an agent and make all the tapings, because I was still on I'll just be the commissioner and I'll come down every 2 or 3 tapings deal. So I wrote, the move of TNA Impact to 9:00 Eastern will theoretically add new viewers and or expose the product to a new audience. If a new viewer does not get a sense of who the talent are as individuals, they'll not understand the angles as well. But if you go back to basics and start telling everyone's story and angles from scratch, you risk alienating or at least boring your longtime viewers. I suggest a series of short vignettes, 30 seconds to a minute, to start in the first 9:00 time slot that can be used as self-contained bumpers, either into or out of a segment. They could be entertaining to the regular viewer, but at the same time give a sense of each talent's personality, gimmick, or uniqueness. Then when the talent appears on the show, the fans know a little more about who the guy is without taking a bunch of time to get there. Obviously, a few guys would be above this as they are in all the great recap packages anyway, and or known quantities: Sting, Jeff Jarrett, Christian, Angle. But for the next level of talent that we want to break through, Rhino, AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, Abyss and Mitchell, Bobby Roode, Harrison Storm, LAX. They need to be featured as already being stars in the new time slot in our world, basically. I didn't add in our world, but they need to be already viewed, point I was trying to make, as these are not like the homegrown thing implies that they've never done anything else or fucked anybody anywhere else but there, right? In some instances, when you got all these guys that are homegrown. Does that make any sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
So if you just present them as these guys are major stars on the level of the people that, Christian Cage and Sting, you don't need to tell, and this is the future. They're already here. So anyway, and I said, the new fan tunes in and doesn't get hit over the head with faces that didn't make it in WWE. And here was a couple ideas I had for the gist of the thing. If you've got Abyss and Mitchell together, and they were a very good combination, you put Abyss on the box like we did Yokozuna. So they say he's 6'8". I think he's 6'5". Mitchell's goddamn 5'11". There's 6 inches difference. Stand him up a little bit. Do the darkened room. Abyss is hair wet and playing with his chain. And Mitchell does the promo. And he's, please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. It's the same thing. He's supposed to be the devil. And I exert soul power and control over the most heartless monster walking the face of the earth. I'm Father James Mitchell, and reminding you that there's no escape when you fall into the abyss. Just personality shit, right? Or do the thing with Rhino that they've ended up kind of doing with Braun Breaker. But I wanted to, I pitched them do the same thing, and they had a fucking budget with Matt Morgan when he was the Blueprint. And I don't know if they ever did that or not. But take Rhino to the goddamn football field with the coaches and the radar guns and the tackling dummies, and have him gore a bunch of fucking dummies at 23 miles an hour with the impact of the fucking deal and the stopwatch and the whole shoot, right? And you put the voiceover together. His whatever inch calves and whatever inch thighs propel his 6'2", 280-pound frame across 40 yards in 2.6 seconds, attaining a maximum velocity of 46 miles an hour or whatever the fuck, right? But no mathematical formula can prepare you for the devastating impact of Rhino. Make somebody out of him. Does this sound like anything for a 45-second spot?
Oh, this is good.
And, then you've got bumpers on all your talent, and you lead into the first 6 weeks of your primetime program. You're hitting it. And then they go out and they have matches and they win. It ain't, but nevertheless, the problem was at the same time as I was pitching shit like this, they were entertaining the thought of bringing in the person who was going to have them build fish bowls for Shark Boy to live in. So it was kind of a different style of presentation.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
Indeed, it was a different style of presentation. What else do you have about the debut?
All righty, hold on here, because I'm thinking now, hold on, is this? No, see, wait a minute. This says November 16. Did we do a 2-hour primetime debut? That's what I was thinking, because I think this is 11/16 2-hour primetime debut. Would our primetime debut have been 2 hours? Because I'm looking at this now after 20 years and I ain't seen it since then. And then the next thing I got is for December of 06. So I think, yeah, this fucking, yeah, and there's 10, yeah, there's 10 segments. So our 11/16/06 show was a 2-hour show. That must have been the primetime debut. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Shouldn't I know my own stuff?
I mean, this is TNA.
Anyway. Well, let's see what I wrote. Because now the one thing we know is that our friend is firmly in the creative meetings. Segment 1, open. Eric Young, Pied Piper's fans. Would have been great on any other show, but this is the primetime debut, and we see Eric Young first. Strategic mistake not to show Kurt Angle, Sting, or Samoa Joe first out of the box, so people know this is not a funny or outlaw program. Announcers were almost coming. The TNA is now prime time, till the viewers must have wondered why we deserve it. It's like they were so insane, like, oh my God, we're in prime time. Like, who could have ever made this drastic mistake, right? Anyway, once they got to the billboards, it looked great. Then Eric Young is first wrestler to speak. Should have gone straight to LAX entrance. LAX enter, great, good recap by announcers. Conan's promo explained LAX's deal, got heat with the flag threat. America's Most Wanted enter. Hit hot, good action. This was fine. Whatever they did. Samoa Joe video, great stuff. Built Joe to a top level. Joe entrance. Jay Lethal entrance. No mystery who's going to win here, but Joe got over. Lethal put him over well. Dutt ran in and got killed at Sanjay. Sabin blowing off helping him was out of place, as this should have been all Joe, because they're working a deal with the X Division guys. They have to do multiple stories. Okay. LAX outside with Hemi. As good as this was inside, it fell in a toilet outside. A girl is chasing these thugs. Where was anybody else who could stop them from burning the flag, and why are they driving somewhere to do it? Continued tease with all threats and no logic made it seem like a publicity stunt instead of a real threatened protest. Segment 2. Paparazzi deal with Nash, Shelley, and Starr. Austin Starr was Austin Aries, but they made him change his name. You remember we had the Paparazzi Productions thing where Nash was allegedly trying to get the X Division interchangeable spot guys over when it was a way for him to be on the show and get paid, but not actually have to wrestle very often.
The genius of Kevin Nash.
Anyway, I said, are we to legitimately believe this shit? Guys promoing while pissing in urinals, Nash taking a shit, bad shit jokes, powdered wigs. This whole deal, all show was embarrassing and way too WWE. It made TNA look outlaw. By the way, I'm an official agent now, so this is my official agent fucking report. Tables match, Naturals versus Team 3D. The tables thing is so overdone and the people need to be weaned off of it ASAP. If guys can't have a match without tables, they need to be weaned off as well. This could get way out of hand. My God, I'm Nostradamus. Accidental bump through a table sparingly is fine, but this is ridiculous. TNA needs to do legitimate finishes because WWE doesn't. Why do they all have to fight in the crowd? It was a minute and 10 into the match before a bump was taken in the ring. My God, now that's record time now. At 140, it was get the tables. At 220, Shane goes through the table. The Naturals looked lousy attacking Team 3D. Give Bubba Ray one bump, then put Devon through a table at 3.5 minutes. A 3.5 minute match with 4 bumps, just lousy. At least I'm consistent, Brian. Now that I've seen this, I'm like, my God, nobody ever listened and nothing ever changed. Segment 3. I'll keep going. Eric Young enters. The announcers are screaming best wrestling program on TV while we're looking at Eric Young. He wasn't a bad talent and was a great guy personally. But when you're trying to fight a war and you're a new primetime program and you're not hitting with goddamn your stings and your stars, I would say. Interrupted by Divine. Remember, oh God, what's the first? Not Candy Divine.
Johnny Divine.
Johnny Divine. Johnny Divine, Matt Bentley, and Kazarian. That's who Maverick Matt was. I think he was a cousin of Shawn Michaels.
He was trained by Shawn Michaels, I remember, because...
And that was his gimmick, was he was his cousin. He was trained by him. Well, basically interrupted by Divine, Bentley, and Kazarian. These guys look completely ridiculous, are not over, and will not get over in these clown suits. Raven's Flock is so 1995 ECW, and I never liked it there. Poor Kazarian was stuck in this group, and once that he was extricated from that, I mean, Kazarian's fantastic, and I was always a fan. But he was just stuck in this deal. And then abrupt VKM entrance. That's when suddenly Road Dogg and Billy Gunn had become the Voodoo Kin Mafia for no other reason than Vincent Kennedy McMahon's initials are VKM, and that's what everybody calls Vince, VKM. And the fans, if they did get it, they didn't give a shit, right? Why? What the fuck? It just meant something to dipshit because he had a grudge against his previous employer. So, abrupt VKM entrance. I like these guys, especially Brian, member of the Armstrong family. But they have gone from a gimmick that made people chant DX to a gimmick that sells the WWE as the top promotion. 1997 WWE here, and that's not good. When WWF went to war with WCW in 1997, both companies had 20 years on cable, equal budgets and talent rosters. This is not the case here, and people know it. It looks like the Pafos challenging Memphis, and they didn't fool anybody but themselves. For these guys to say that they were the stars of DX is somewhat ludicrous.
Here.
VKM, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Fantastic.
Well, VKM hit the ring and beat up the Flock to prove that they're worthless. Their promo was too inside. I quote, creative control. When they say Paul Levesque and Michael Hickenbottom, the smart crowd only murmurs. Vince's name gets a big pop because everybody knows who he is. And then they degenerate into laughing at each other. This is another shoot deal that few will understand and no one else will care about. The only comment I heard about it was from the Doubletree bellhop, who said it made him want to watch Raw to see if they responded. This is the hotel we stayed at, right? I said, this is company killing shit.
You're right, though. It's all to get a reaction from Vince, who didn't react at all. He didn't give a shit.
Yes. So anyway, now bear in mind, after turning this in, I still had a job as an agent for another 3 years. But nevertheless, 6 Sides of Steel, the cage match, Rhino versus Christian Cage. Goofy WWF escape rules distracted, as did the silly gimmicks being handed in, straight jacket, wire cutters, chairs, key. Might have made this a clown show instead of TNA's answer to Hell in Cell, if not for great performances by Christian and Rhino. Match part 2, seg 5. We missed Christian getting color. using bolt cutters on Rhino and cutting the wire, and it was briefly recapped. Yet we had time earlier to see Nash shitting. Because that's when they went to break. This was an edited show. It wasn't live to tape. And they did all kinds of shit. But because, again, Knucklehead had to have he didn't care how short the matches were or what part of them we went to commercial break in or anything, as long as the backstage interviews and or talking segments that he wrote everything out for were a set amount of time. So we missed Christian bleeding. We missed him using the bolt cutters. We missed him cutting the wire. But we had time to see Nash on the toilet earlier in the program. I said, this detracted from the best thing on the show so far and pissed me off as a viewer. These guys had a super match, and I wish we could have seen it all. Finish was only one possible for the escape rule and was a striking visual. This is what TNA needs, guys having great matches and the time to show them. And I think didn't Rhino gore him through the door and Christian hit first or something? Something like that. Three-way, segment 6, three-way for the X Division title, Sabin versus Daniels versus Styles. Good, crisp, fast-paced match. Perfect to highlight X Division and what these guys can do. Again, there's three ways. This was 20 years ago. It wasn't overdone, and these guys were professionals. So it's not that they all had to inherently be shite. They just got that way when they were done way past point of no return. Christian distracting AJ while Daniels pins Sabin devalues the title to have the champion lose without being pinned. I think we should use elimination for multi-man title matches. This furthered AJ and Daniels' split, but could have been done without devaluing the title. And then the paparazzi video, more shit comedy, a dick joke, inside stuff nobody gets, complete waste of valuable airtime, and anyone associated with Nash is buried as a sidekick. Segment 7. LAX is now outside ready to burn the flag. And I think it was the American flag, I believe, at this point. And I said, this pretty well killed the whole damn deal. They supposedly took a car, but here we were still in the same area with the same lighting. It got contrived here, and Petey Williams sounded more like Yankee Doodle Dandy than General Patton. Christy Hemme yelling was like nails on a chalkboard. They got good heat on Petey, but then when they pour gas, in quotation marks, on him and start to set him on fire, it stretched credibility too far and made it blatant that this was a staged publicity stunt. LAX was then run off by a taped siren and a cop car nobody ever saw. Because the fucking moron comes into the goddamn place with a TV format that needs police cars, and nobody knew how to get police cars because nobody knew any real fucking police that would cooperate with his bullshit. So they taped a fucking siren and played it and flashed a goddamn flashing red light off camera. I swear to God to you.
Was it Sergeant Clancy?
I think it was Doberman. And so anyway, I said, this killed all the real heat they got earlier. Tenay on camera selling this as if someone killed his puppy destroyed Tenay's credibility, as he was the only one to possibly believe it. Segment 8.
This is fantastic.
Sting VTR, great recap of Sting's story in TNA. Abyss and Mitchell enter. This guy and this pairing is money, but Abyss definitely needs major wins and a few months of them to rehab all of his losses before he can be effective in any angle. Because he just was beat all the time. And he took the ridiculous bumps and they set him on fire and he had thumbtacks sticking in him. And there wasn't anything else. They even left him off off TV, even though they didn't fire him or let him go from the company because everybody liked him. Dutch, particularly on purpose, took him off TV for like 3 or 4 months because there was nothing left to do to a guy, right? And then within 2 weeks, when they brought him back, he had flung himself off the stage on through a table while the table was on fire. He couldn't get it that he could work. He could move for a big guy. And he could have been a Brody instead of a goddamn garbage match guy. Anyway.
Giant McFoley.
Yes. But with, and I've told you, he's a producer up there now. He can remember shit like crazy. He's a savant when it comes to remembering a wrestling match, but you couldn't get him not to do the hardcore stuff and slice himself up 20 years ago. And that's what held him back. He could have been easily a main event fucking guy if he'd worked and thought WWF style instead of Ian Rotten style. He could have been easily a 7-figure guy in that period of time, 7 figures a year in the WWF. Nevertheless, Seg 9, Angle versus Abyss. Crowd was hot. Announcer spent too much time selling Angle versus Joe on pay-per-view. It was, again, we're in prime time. We're in Kurt Angle's debut match. This is when he had just started, and they're looking past it already. I know we need to sell it, but let's concentrate on what we got. Crowd was ballistic and chanting, and announcers talked over it, sell the pay-per-view instead of letting the atmosphere sell TNA and the finish sell pay-per-view. Too much shilling. Mitchell with the thumbtacks was needless distraction, as the whole thumbtack thing is freak show business. Angle shouldn't be anywhere near it, and it does Abyss no good as a money player. Abyss should have been way more vicious on offense. Match part 2. Abyss was unfocused and wandered around checking out the damn tacks. So it slowed the match down, and once it got back in the ring, people had to get with it again. Abyss may need cardio work. Angle's triple Germans got him back, and a good finish. If Abyss had been more aggressive, this match would have elevated him. Samoa Joe runs in, gave him good action, but too much before the pay-per-view. Why did Joe strike a deal with Abyss? If I don't know the heels and faces, do the viewers. Undefined roles create ambivalence, not mystery. Sting enters from the ceiling and cleans house. Then Angle and Joe get into it again, and Abyss ends up back with Sting, hung from the ceiling. Way too much. Joe could have walked off after KOing Angle with a chair. Mitchell could have told Abyss to attack Angle. Sting could have saved Angle from Abyss and go off the air. Joe putting Angle in an ankle lock while he was out cold. Sting hanging from the ceiling in a Roadrunner trap. Angle getting juice and getting choked out. All were wasted as the crowd went from hot to super hot to sinking to just standing there as we left the air.
So who did you send that to? Who saw that?
Jeff. I tried to win little battles every so often, but they were doing their thing. But it's not like he got mad at me for saying it.
Did he ever say anything years later or after the fact about, any of this?
No,
you were only there because he asked you to be there.
Well, yes. Well, and later on, obviously, as this happened, then that's when he started, okay, well, work on the finishes, make them more palatable of the matches, right? I don't want to mess with the goddamn interviews because then you start to rewrite the whole fucking show. But for the matches, then that was my task, especially on the main event stuff, the underneath stuff, they did what they did. But for the money matches, if a finish was just goddamn just way off or stupid, preposterous, counterproductive, whatever, all right, you know where we're trying to go, so how would you get there? And then I'd either go get a cheesesteak at the fucking Universal Commissary, or in a case of a real writer's block, I'd drive down to the Wendy's and get a triple or two and come up with the goddamn finish, and then fucking come back and pitch it to Jeff, and he's, okay, do that. And then Russo would get mad because I changed his fucking finish.
Well, this has been our look at TNA, the glory days.
I've got some more. We can get into December 2006 next time, as well as the full page letter that I wrote to Jeff when I tried to explain. It starts like this. I genuinely don't want to be as negative as the enclosed reports make it seem. And this is not personal with me and him. It's business, regardless of my personal feelings. And then I tell Jeff what I'm afraid is going to happen to TNA with him around. And son of a gun, a lot of those things happen. But we'll get to that later on.
We will. And of course, next week, I know I said we would do it this week, but next week's Songs Return, we got some new submissions and maybe some more on.
What would you like me to sing?
Don't sing. We have others sending in songs.
Don't sing. I'll just start on humming, and then I'll come in strumming. If you just won't sing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
As we get ready to wrap things up, one last thing here, because this is breaking as we are recording. The Hollywood Reporter reporting Barry Blaustein, writer for Eddie Murphy on Saturday Night Live and Coming to America films, dies at 72. According to this, Barry was battling Parkinson's disease and just recently, last month, found out he had stage 4 pancreatic cancer.
Ooh.
But how well did you know Barry Blaustein?
I mean, I've spoke to him, I think, in person a couple of times and on the phone once or twice, so not well, but he was a very nice guy and he loved the wrestling business. Again, you know, the Beyond the Mat thing is almost 30 years ago. I didn't want the cameras to be beyond the fucking mat. And he did try to get me to participate, but I wasn't the one shot. But he really wanted it to be positive for wrestling and wrestlers and special and all that stuff. I just didn't agree with revealing everything then, but he was a very nice guy and very influential in the movie business and had, worked on like Coming to America with Eddie Murphy and all these other major projects. And so, yeah, I hate to hear that. He was a very nice guy and really loved wrestling and not in a markish way, but wanted to tell the boys stories and all that stuff. I wish he'd come along a few years later when the whole cause was lost to begin with.
Well, it says here in talking about his different films, in what he called the, quote, favorite thing he had ever done, Blaustein wrote, directed, produced, and narrated the 1999 documentary Beyond the Mat, a look inside the Vince McMahon-led World Wrestling Federation and another circuit, Extreme Championship Wrestling. It was one of 12 finalists for the Oscar for Best Documentary. So how about that? It was his favorite project of anything he did.
Yeah, it was a personal interest and something he could really, dig into and etc. So, yeah, but again, I hate to hear that, but poor Ted Turner, Barry Blaustein, everybody that ever got us on TV or movies is going away now.
He was working on that movie for so long. I actually would run into him a few times, and as I'm thinking about it, it was over the span of like a year. Because I remember seeing
at those ECW shows, right?
The weekend of the ECW pay-per-view, which was, I think, April of 97, I remember seeing Barry. And the Terry Funk show in Amarillo, which was mid-September of 97, Barry was there with his film crew running around. And those weren't the only two places. And I talked to him on the phone, too. So a lot of people put down that movie beyond the idea they're breaking kayfabe. Jake Roberts defenders think that Jake Roberts was done dirty by that movie. I don't know how. I don't think Barry made Jake do anything Jake wasn't doing, and Jake probably
you could never do Jake any dirtier in any fashion than he has done himself throughout his life.
That's right. So I don't think it's fair when people put down Barry Blaustein for that reason, even though Jake may not be happy with it. That was Jake at that point in his life, and he said yes.
Yeah.
But so many of the things that you think about, I mean, there's so many quotes from that movie. Fucking Dennis Stamp jumping around on his trampoline. Like, there are things you think about that were Barry Blaustein creations or edits that, you know, I still think about you in the back. And who was it? It was, God dang it. Roland Alexander telling the guy about his diet. I mean, come on. How ridiculous can it be?
Yeah. Well, but that's the thing is that I was telling my part in the movie was telling two of the guys who were having a tryout match, a dark match, you know, where to dress and whatever. And they were from Roland Alexander's
That's right.
APW. And that's what Roland Alexander, he would put forth for tryouts the guys at his school that like his trainer or were doing things for him or that he picked. And he got mad when I saw the tape of Vic Grimes and Aaron O'Grady, who became Crash Holly, and booked him for a dark match. He didn't get to claim credit for that. Like, yeah, I got you guys, you kids, I got you booked because I got pulled. No, I just fucking booked them because we want to fucking maybe hire them. But I figured this will be with the movie, this will certainly be on the cutting room floor. They're going to shoot me showing these guys where to dress. And then it ended up in the fucking movie. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Because I was trying to stay, I was an agent at that point and I was giving guys finishes and I would have to take them in closets or shit because I didn't want myself on tape giving guys a finish in a wrestling match or telling them what the fuck was going to go on. And I think I made it until about 2010 or so when Ring of Honor had one of those fakakta networks doing a documentary and I had to fucking participate in that. But it was about till then that I was never filmed giving a finish.
Well, again, Barry Blaustein, writer from Saturday Night Live, helped develop a lot of the popular Eddie Murphy characters like Gumby. Barry Blaustein was one of the writers. Eddie Murphy was a kid. He had a few people he worked with, and Barry was one of them. Also, the Nutty Professor films. And a film I loved as a kid, I saw it before I saw the first one, Police Academy 2, Their First Assignment, where Zed terrorizes Mr. Sweetchuck. And the recruits or the cadets from the police academy get their first assignment dealing with Captain Mauser, or wannabe Captain Mauser. I'm talking way too much about Police Academy.
Yes, you are.
Off the top of my head. But there it is, Barry Blaustein passing away, breaking today. And with that, Jim, the drive-thru is closed. Ah!
He's reaching for it.
I'm reaching. I'm not playing anything good. All right, I'm happy with that. Oh, and then I dropped it.
You got a low level of happiness, a low bar to clear.
We'll be back in a few days on the Jim Cornette Experience. And then, of course, next week back here on the drive-thru, go through the archive. Patreon.com/Cornette. Go through the archive. $5 a month gets you access going back to 2013. Patreon.com/Cornette. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Go and subscribe today. Full episodes.
Without delay.
Clip City episodes, omnibus collections, and so much more. That George Livonitis artwork that everyone loves. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel.
You know, it's hard to believe that a swell guy like George Laurinaitis is brothers with that no-good son of a gun.
There's no relation, and that is not his name. But of course, Cornette's Collectibles at JimCornette.com has lots of great deals, no matter what your name is. What's going on, Jim?
Well, that is my name, and that's my game, is giving you good deals. So, like a bunch of trained seals, jump on the website today and make it pay for me to give you merch. Lurch, JimCornette.com.
All right, Nipsey Russell over here. Of course, if you heard that and you were offended, you may want to sue. The drive-thru is brought to you by the law office of Stephen P. New, 877-50-STEVE. Get even with Stephen at newlawoffice.com. But until the experience in a few days, and next week back here on the drive-thru, For Jim Cornette, I'm the great Brian Last. Tally ho!